How many people you need?
Recording there.
Steph, can you hear me?
Oh,
Yep,
there you
can
go.
you hear us?
Hey, he's got the COVID. It's fine. He's good.
Can you hear us,
Can you
Peter?
hear me now?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah, now I can. I couldn't before. Are we all set?
Are you? Yeah. You gonna start it, Peter?
Yeah, I'll start it. If
Okay, great.
I can. All right, welcome to the Site Plan Review Technical Advisory Committee meeting for June 7th, 2022. I see that we have a quorum. And first order of business is approval of the May 3rd, 2022 minutes. Are there any changes? Or do we have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Okay. And everybody can hear me okay, right?
Right.
Okay, all right, good. Item A under old business is the application of Banfield Realty LLC owner for property located at 375 Banfield Road, requesting site plan review approval to demolish 2 existing commercial buildings and an existing shed and construct a 75,000 square foot industrial warehouse building with 75 parking spaces as well as associated paving, stormwater management, lighting, utilities, and landscaping. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 266, Lot 7, and lies within the industrial district. Who's here to present?
Hello, I'll start, I guess. Joe Coronati with Jones and Beach Engineers. With me I have Bill Wilcox and Rob Graham, the applicant. This has been before you multiple times, and I believe we've hopefully satisfied all of the items that were brought up previously. We've received all of our state permits. There was a request for some off-site work on Banfield Road. That work's actually already been completed as well. And I think we're down to hopefully no more items and can hopefully move this along. Bill's here from Barton and Wilcox to talk about anything environmental. They've been working on the environmental side of this piece since the beginning. And so I can either, if you have any questions for him, he can answer them. I don't know if you need a kind of a presentation or a description.
I don't know if I can speak for all attack, but I can speak for at least myself. When I look at the DES letter from April 21st, it looks like there's a whole bunch of contaminants found on the site, and then some unacceptable levels found, and then a whole bunch of additional testing that they called for. And so my thought was at least to give us an update. It's been postponed for quite a while for that sampling, and to see where we are with that and to see what the next steps are. I don't know how far we can go beyond that, but that is, at least we were hoping for an update on that. It looks like there's still quite a bit of work to do before you do anything on the site.
An update would be, we have submitted our remedial action plan to the New Hampshire DES, and we forwarded a copy of that remedial action plan to the EPA. The EPA has jurisdictions because of the PCBs at the site. The state of New Hampshire will deal with the EPA's recommendation along with their own. At the site, working with the DES, we have separated the upland portion of the site from the lowland portion of the site. So the upland portion of the site is where the development's going to occur, and our contaminants of concern are lead and PCBs in soil. The remedial action plan has put forth a strategy to remove the 3 hot spots where the PCBs are located above 10 parts per million. And then the plan is to relocate all the PCB contaminated soil and the lead impacted soil to either beneath the building, beneath asphalt, or beneath a engineered barrier of 2 feet of cover. So inside the disturbance area for the project, all the site contamination will be removed or will be encapsulated beneath the concrete, the asphalt, or again, 2 feet of clean cover. The remedial action plan does not address the lowland portion of the wetlands. The state gave us a timetable to put forth our next work plan, which I believe is, I think it was 108, actually I'm not sure, I think it was 120 days for that work plan. We expect to have that work plan in the works in the next 30 to 60 days. So again, our remedial action plan only addresses the contaminants of concern in soil, which would again be the lead and the PCBs. Other issues they brought forth was PFAS in groundwater. They've asked us to do both a spring and a fall sampling event. We've performed our spring event, and the results are pending.
And have we resolved all of the issues in our Phase 1 wrap with DES? And
So the state has not yet commented on our remedial action plan. The EPA has 30 days to comment, or it's presumptively approved. So we submitted our wrap to EPA on or about the end of May. So they have still have a few more weeks to make comments, and we expect the DES review over the next several weeks.
So if I understand that right, you're saying that the development itself is in the upland area where you've submitted a remedial action plan that you're waiting for a response back on. And your plan is to cap that area, basically remove the contaminants, and then build the site on top of it. And then do a new remedial action plan for the lowland area when the results are done on that?
Yes, 2 comments. So we're only going to, regarding the upland portion of the site, we are going to remove all the topsoil just because it's geotechnically not suitable. That will be disposed of. A lot of the PCB contamination is inside that topsoil area. There's 3 additional areas where the PCB levels are above 10 part per million. We'll be doing surgical strikes to remove that contamination where the high PCBs are located. That will be stockpiled, removed offsite for disposal. All other contamination, PCBs less than 10 part per million, and lead above the state's action levels will be relocated beneath the building, under the asphalt, or beneath a 2-foot engineered barrier. That's for the upland portion of the site. The lowland portion of the site will have its own work plan put together and approved by the DES at the state. And then if remediation is necessary, there'll be a separate and unique remedial action plan for the low-lying areas. I believe the state gave us a deadline of the end of 2023 for that remedial action plan for the low-lying areas.
So I don't understand something here. And I know I'm butting in, so I'm going to, because I live right across the street on 422 Banfield Road.
Mr. Ecker, you're going to have to wait till the public comment period. So at least my understanding of it is you still don't know what the state's going to say in terms of whether you can put the building there, right? I mean,
We've met with the state, and they've approved of our method of separating the upland portion from the lowland portion, and through conversation have conceptually agreed to our strategy. So we are expecting a very favorable outcome.
okay. So I don't know about the rest of you guys, but to me, it feels like I'd rather have the state put that in writing before we approve a plan for the site. We've gone pretty far with the plan. I think we're pretty far along, but knowing that the site is going to work from a DES standpoint, and then understanding the other part too, the lowland part, I mean, to me, it's all part of the site. How is that going to protect the people that are working there and the people that live near there and all that before you go and put a big development on it? To me, it seems like a lot of uncertainty. I don't know. Maybe we need a third party to weigh in on this for us, because I'm, just seeing a lot of concerns when I read that report from DES that aren't resolved yet. And I understand you have a process and you're confident that it's going to go forward, but we have to.
our hope here is today is to be approved to move on to the planning board pending the written confirmation from EPA and DES.
I don't know. I'm the only one talking here, but it seems to me like there's a lot of outstanding pieces.
Before any work is done at the site, we will need to have a DES-approved remedial action plan and an approval for EPA regarding PCBs and soil. So no work is going to happen at the site until those approvals are obtained.
That's what I was gonna say. So as long as there's no physical work, site work performed, not right, wrong, or indifferent, it would seem like in the spirit of moving the project along, it's all conceptual at this point until they get their approvals in. It's just a matter of whether or not the city wants to spend their time and energy on the project, and then it gets denied and
Right.
time has been lost. But
Yeah, and my concern is that there's 2 areas that you talk about. One is you're close to completion on, the other one you're a long way off on completion on, and we don't know the ramifications of that area. So the whole site has contaminants throughout it, and that might be beyond it. And I know that you guys didn't put them there, so I'm not pointing the finger at you for creating the contamination, but you found it at DES's request and EPA's, and it's gonna have to be remediated at some point. But how will that affect this project design is where, it's not clear.
Well,
And so to me, I personally feel like I can't vote for it with knowing what I know, and I feel like I'd rather have that response back from DES and know that it's good to go, and we're not sending it to the planning board with these unknowns.
And we're happy to do that. We just need the understanding of, as you said, we didn't pollute this site.
No.
We're here, we're on the good guy side. The development portion of this site on Phase 1 improves the condition of the site, and it stops the continued contamination of the rest of the land. And without a project, this isn't going to get done. We're already into this for $600,000. We're here and we're committed to do it, and we're going to complete it, and we've done that many times throughout the Seacoast. And the last project that we did over at Kate Street, we went to the gold standard there, and we excavated that entire site, and it cost us over $2 million to do that. So we understand these sites. We picked these sites from the standpoint that we see a win-win in it, both for the community and for us, and we really like to get things moving. Getting this project going is what pays these bills to do this type of work. I think we have a pretty reasonable approach from the standpoint that, and I agree, we don't expect to go to the planning board until we have the letters signed off from EPA and DES on our Phase 1, and we'll continue to work on the Phase 2 issue. That will take several years, a very involved process of things, but that portion of the property does not affect the area of the development. And moving forward with the development cycle on Phase 1 improves the outcome. The sooner we do it, the better. So that's what we're here to communicate today, is we'd like to be cleared to go to the planning board once we get the letter signed off, which we expect fairly soon. We wanted to come in today to give an update because we know we've had new people in and out, and it's been a little while, and I think that's healthy to do. But, we need some help.
Yeah.
We need somebody to work with us here, and, because we're trying to do the right thing, and we're trying to do it at a very high level.
What makes this site interesting is the upland portion of the site, there's a car crusher, and there's automobile storage on the upland portion of the site. On the lowland portion of the site, there was construction demolition debris that was deposited in a pre-1981 landfill. So the way we've designed the project is the entire area of disturbance for the warehouse project, that entire area will be remediated to meet the state standard. At the end of that, there'll be a deed restriction placed on the property protecting any uses and future uses. So that entire area will be either, the remediation, the contamination will be removed and disposed, or will be fully encapsulated. All the stormwater over that entire area of disturbance will now be captured through retention systems and discharged. So the overall, the reason why the state believed that we could separate the two is because the contaminant sources are different, and that it's going to be a net improvement for the property once this development goes in, environmentally speaking.
And that we can get moving on it immediately to start fixing the problem.
Right. Yeah, and I understand that the upland portion, when you do build it, it will serve as a cap for that, so that is something that I've heard from the state as well. However, I don't feel comfortable knowing enough, and I even feel like when that letter comes back from the state, it'd be nice to have a third party. I don't know if you guys, I see there's a request for a third-party environmental review during construction. To me, it seems like a third-party review to review the remediation plan would be worth our, so we understand the project better. I don't know if people agree with that, but that would be something I'd recommend.
I actually recommended that about 7 months ago.
Well, we did go out to the engineering firm that you guys recommended, and we spent money and had them review our permitting process. And I think we spent $8,000 doing that. And right now, the governing bodies, the EPA and the DES are the governing bodies, they're the ones that review this. The DES and Hazardous Materials work together on our alteration of terrain permit. I mean, this is a lot of oversight that's already been done. And I'm not sure what the reticence is here to hold off getting this process started. We need to get this project moving to get this cleanup started, and we can't do it.
I'm not recommending holding off, but I do want the results of that upland area before I can recommend.
Oh, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. I just don't, once we've got that sign off from the governing bodies on that, we'd just like to be able to go to planning board. It just doesn't seem like, we've been here enough times and there's not a lot to kick around here.
Yeah, no, I think the site design is pretty well understood. It's really this remediation piece.
Right.
What is your timeline for the state review of the remediation plan?
They don't specifically say, but I expect in the next coming weeks. I would personally, my guess is somewhere between 30 and 90 days.
It's kind of like the cable guy. They give you a big window.
Yeah.
You never know.
But again, I think the upland portion of the site is pretty darn straightforward. This is a soil management plan that will document how we're going to manage the soils during construction, how we're going to have stormwater controls in place. It speaks to how we're going to remove 3 isolated areas of soil contamination for off-site disposal. It talks about that if we encounter any solid waste materials, they'll be segregated and disposed as a solid waste. And then at the end of the day, we'll have a building with asphalt and a structured cap to eliminate any direct runoff. So again, it's a net improvement for the site. The science behind the upland portion is pretty straightforward.
So it sounds like you have a plan to deal with the upland contaminants already kind of in your head, or submitted, really. In terms of the lowland portion, are you committed to cleaning up that as well?
Yes, we own the site. We're stuck with dealing with it, and there's some sophisticated testing and things that have to be done there. It takes time, and this approach is really what was hammered out in our processes with DES and of how to bite off the pieces that we can bite off and get moving and improving the site while we continue to study the rest of it, and we're committed to do that.
The remedial action plan is completely consistent with all the discussions we've had with the state. This is exactly what they're expecting.
So what is the timeline for the lowland section? Because the only thing I'm really kind of having a little bit of heartburn about is that I understand the upland portion, and I understand the motivation to build a building on top of it and cap it. But once the building's in place and the upland portion is capped, the motivational factor is less, been, it's just, so what is the timeline?
The state has given us
To
we-
deal with it? Have a plan and then actually do the plan and have it completed.
Well, if we could forecast DES and EPA approvals, we would be making a lot more money than we're making here today, I can tell you that. It's, again, we've got a time period to respond and to study that we were asked to study. And some of that is seasonal, and some of that, all of it takes time. And, we've been in this process now for 2 years.
Yeah, so the iterative steps would be the first phase is to get a work plan in and approved by the state. The state has suggested in their letter in April that it'll give us until the end of 2003 to get our studies worked, our study complete, and our remedial action plan into the state.
2023?
I'm sorry, 2023, thank you.
Okay.
So by the end of 2023, we'll have our remedial action plan into the state. And that will begin their review process, and then after that would be the construction.
Of the low-lying areas.
Correct, of the low-lying areas. Which would cover all the areas outside of the limits of disturbance for the development project.
Has it been determined that doing work on the upper section will not negatively impact the lower section?
Yes, it has.
And that's in a report some,
It's a finding of the state also in their letter.
That's the report.
So Rob, the motivation after the upland is developed, and then it's not even a matter of motivation, there'll be a requirement from the state to remediate the rest of the site in its entirety, is that
Yeah,
correct?
we're in a regulatory process of
Okay, there you
DES.
go. So that would
This
answer.
really should have been completed 10 years ago, and the lack of oversight by many agencies and people let that languish and allowed the former landowners to skirt their responsibilities. We understand that we've taken that over by buying the site. We own the site, and we're in a process that we are going to continue with, or we're not going to be in compliance of our permits. We own a lot of real estate in this town. We're not new, we're not fly-by-night people, and we're here and have been working in the community for quite a while. Have completed these types of projects here to great success. And we're looking forward to getting this one done. Just, you know, these are complex issues that take cooperation, and they take, quite honestly, help from you folks to help us get where we need to go to do it. We anticipate expenses out there in the field of upwards of $1 million in terms of disposal costs and monitoring, and these guys are on site all the time for the whole process. DEA or DES or EPA, they can send their professionals there anytime and often do.
I just saw DEA.
Yeah.
Panicky moment.
Yeah, and, you know, and I think it's perfectly reasonable to, you know, in the past, what we've done was we met with the third-party engineer prior to construction. We set up a scope for the weekly visits, and they can spot visit, and we keep them updated all the time, and that's no problem at all. We're happy to do that. In fact, we like to do that. It creates another set of eyes and another set of records. You know, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
You know, we need some help, folks.
Okay, well, Peter, I don't know if there's other comment from the committee, but we also know we have public comment. So if there's no more comment
Right,
from
I
the
think-
committee, do you want to open the public comment?
I've got one.
Yes.
Oh, wait,
I've got one on-
Zach's still
Go
got
ahead, Zach.
Zach's still got a
So,
question.
on sheet C4, the fire service coming in, you guys have that as a 6-inch. It does go to a fire hydrant, so that line should be an 8-inch across the property from the water main in the street. It can come down to a 6-inch for the fire service, but the entire length to the fire hydrant should be 8.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay, you all set, Zach?
Yes.
All right, at this time, if there's anyone from the public who wants to speak, please come up to one of the microphones and state your name and address, please.
My name is David Ecker. I live at 422 Banfield Road, which is directly across the street from this site. I was born in this building right here, right down the hall, and I've been at that site my entire life, and I've watched everything that happened at the site. And I watched the city take down 300 homes downtown and dump them in the swamp on this site, creating part of this problem. I don't believe Mr. Graham's responsible for it at all. I think Mr. Graham should be going after the city for contaminating his land, quite frankly. I had a sample taken of the water on my property, and the lead level was 6 times the regulatory limit. It's killing animals. I see it constantly all the time, and rabid animals on my property. I want to know who in this room would allow their pet to drink out of this. Anybody? Anybody in this room? Mr. Graham? Would you let your pet drink out of that? That's in my yard.
Hey,
That's in my yard. Now, I don't want...
I'm here trying to, I'm here
Okay,
trying to fix it.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
get
the
it.
bad guy.
I get it. I get it.
I've reached out to you several times and I
I
haven't gotten a call
understand
back.
that, but you didn't reach out to the tenants, the residents, until you found it was a problem. And then later on, you sent out another letter saying there wasn't gonna be a meeting. As far as I'm concerned, that's arrogant.
Okay.
That's how I felt about it.
Mr.
right?
Ecker.
Otherwise, I would've got to you.
Mr.
No
Ecker,
doubt.
Mr. Ecker, can you just address the committee?
I
please?
understand that. That's what I'm trying to do here. Now, I really don't want to see anything happen on this piece of property until this is cleaned up. Now, I have a dug well on my property, and years ago, when my folks first bought the property, there was no city water on Portsmouth, on Banfield Road. And my mother, was 6 months pregnant with my younger brother, the well went dry. My father had to go down the side of the well 20 feet deep and dig it down deeper, so they had water. Well, I can't drink out of that well because it's contaminated from this property. And you folks are gonna let this thing go ahead without cleaning up the mess first? I want the mess cleaned up. I want it cleaned up before any building gets built on this piece of property, period. You say that you're gonna help, that's gonna solve the problem by taking all the water from a building and put it in a little pond and let it go back down in the ground just as it was before. I wanna see the whole entire site excavated, cleaned up, and I want my property cleaned up. And the house across the street that my sister owns has a basement, and it has concrete with stone on top of the concrete, with concrete on top of that, and it's inundated with lead-based water too. I want it all cleaned up. I don't want this committee right here to approve anything, let anything go ahead until you're gonna figure out a way to clean this mess up. Quite frankly, Mr. Graham, I think you should be going after the city, the housing authority, for contaminating the lot that you currently own. Mr. Sullivan, yesterday in the staircase back here, I've known him for a long, long time. He was out at my site last fall. He and Mr. Beckstead. Mr. Sullivan's a bull-faced liar. Let's just say that, okay? Period. But he pointed the finger right at the housing authority, that it's their problem. And that's what I think you should be doing. I think you should be going after them to get the money out of them to clean up that mess. Now, from what I understand, in the back of that property, which is infringing on the community campus, which we're spending $10 million on, part of it's contaminated too. Is Mr. Sullivan gonna go after the housing authority to clean up that mess? You thought this that far?
We'd like
Has
to-
anybody thought this as far?
Just want to remind you to
Here
address.
take comment.
Yeah.
Well, I'm giving my comment. This is what I'm doing.
We
None
understand-
of you would be happy with this in your yard. Anybody in this room gonna tell me they'd be happy looking at that in their yard? I had an individual come down from the city that I respect highly, and he said to me, David, I don't know what that is. And I said to him, you know something? You're absolutely right, I don't either. I keep assuming what it is, so I had it tested, and lo and behold, it was bad. And after that, because I got shut off at the TAC meeting last February by Juliet Walker, that pissed me off. Then I went and got a sample taken. After I took that sample, I wrote a letter that Bob Lister, former Mayor Bob Lister, took a look at all of this and said, David, that's a Superfund site. Make sure you put my name on the bottom of that. I then took a packet of that, everything that went to TAC, and I gave it to the planning board. Well, nobody got back to me. That pissed me off too. Then the next thing you know, all of a from the city council, everybody in the city council got it, including the manager. Nobody gave me a phone call. Then the next thing I know is a planning board meeting. I show up at the planning board meeting, Juliet Walker's standing right there, and 2 weeks later, she quit. This is not a good problem. I understand you want to fix it, thank God. I have a well on my property that I can't use. I live right down the street, I'm pretty sure you understand that, where the pond's at,
I do.
okay? First thing I did when I bought that property was dig a hole 25 feet deep and put my own well in, so I can water my own grass and use my own water. I can't do this on this piece of property.
Mr. Ecker, we're going to ask you to direct your comments to the TAC. Well, this is not a conversation between you and the applicant, so we understand your concern. We are interested in hearing
You
your
understand my
comments.
frustration?
I understand your frustration. We understand your comments, but this is not a time for a conversation with the applicant. Address your comments to the Technical Advisory Committee. We'd appreciate
Okay,
that.
so my comment is I don't want to see anything done on this piece of property until this situation's cleaned up, including the building. Now, I understand that you folks say that that's going to help the problem. I have right here a copy of the listing. I'm sure you have a copy of it too. Right on this listing, it says remediation has been completed and a certificate of no further action has been issued by the state of New Hampshire, the Department of Environmental Services. That's what they said in the listing that you got. So the EPA or the DES said the line was clean.
Well,
You
no.
bought- I understand, and you bought it.
No, the broker said that.
Okay, yeah, exactly, right, Wayne Semprini, I get it, I so understand, trust me. But was there a certificate of no further action in the listing? If there was, then somebody at DES is playing a game. So why should anybody in this room be invested in DES and what they say? I don't want to see anything done on a piece of property until they have a plan to clean it all up and to make sure the water coming through the pipe onto my property is drinkable. And I don't think there's anything anybody in this room would not want. If this was coming onto your land and you couldn't let your dog come out of the house and go run wild like they used to on my 7-acre piece of property that's wooded all the way around, that I can let an animal go run free, and I can't because he can't drink the water because it's gonna kill him, I don't think that's right. And I don't think anybody in this room would want that. You all have a good day.
All right, thank you, Mr. Eckert. Are there any other comments from the public at this time? All right, we'll close that portion
That's it.
and then open it for discussion.
Well, I'm still interested in seeing what the ES has to say on the upland portion and looking into the lowland portion more, but,
I just have a question. So for the low-lying area, the lowland portion, I understand that there's a remediation plan that you're working with DES on. What is their compliance mechanism to ensure that that's completed, that second part, Phase 2 cleanup is going to be completed? I'm not as familiar with New Hampshire state law, so I'm just trying to understand that we don't have a mechanism to ensure that's completed. I'm just trying to understand what DES's mechanism to ensure that you do that remediation.
The state has issued a site number for the project. Once the state puts forth their schedule for completion of certain items, they will monitor the completion of those items. If not, then if you fail to do that, they can give you an administrative consent order with penalty, and that'd be their mechanism.
Okay.
We were led to believe certain things when we bought the site. When we reached out and investigated and found out that that clearly there were things that were supposed to be being done and that had languished, we opened that file immediately and began working the site to compliance.
Can I make a comment? So we're the environmental consultant, we're Wilcox and Bard, and working with this team, they've given us complete leeway to perform whatever site investigation steps necessary to characterize the site. So we have had a full authorization to pursue. We've advanced hundreds of borings, collected hundreds and hundreds of samples to define these areas of contamination. Because the contaminant sources are so different between the upland portion and the lowland portion, that's why the state has found it appropriate to divide the site in two, where we can actually create a net improvement for the property by doing the development, and then the state has put forth a very structured schedule for the work plans and implementation of a remedial action plan on the backside for the lowlands. So I just wanted to let you know that we're, from a consultant standpoint, we're delighted to work with this team, and we're working quickly. This has been a lot of work performed at this site.
Well, I'm ready to make a motion to postpone until we get the results of the upland portion, certainly, and potentially the lowland portion, but at least the upland portion at this point. Just leave it to that, the upland portion.
Second.
There's a second?
Yep, Ashanti seconded.
All right, any
Oh,
discussion?
Patrick seconded, sorry. I heard it from over that direction.
Any discussion on the motion? Steph, you all set?
Just a motion to postpone, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
We'll update you as soon as we get more information.
Thank you.
All right, the next item of old business is the request of the Sagamore Group LLC, owner for properties located at 1169 and 1171 Sagamore Avenue, requesting site plan review approval for the demolition of 3 existing principal structures and 3 existing accessory structures to be replaced with 6 single-family structures and 2 two-family structures to total 10 living units and 22 parking spaces where 15 is required. Said properties are shown on Assessor Map 224, Lot 14 and Lot 15, and lie within the mixed residential office district.
So once again, Joe Coronati, Jones and Beach Engineers. With me this time, I have Mr. Mike Garpy of the Sagamore Group. So I think we've the last meeting we were, well, we've been, I guess, asked to look at kind of an overflow construction of a culvert on Sagamore as part of our off-site improvements. We've done that design work, submitted it. It's been reviewed by your third-party consultant. I think all of that work has been, basically reviewed and signed off. As part of that application, or part of that design work included some work in the wetland buffer. So we had submitted things are a little, I guess, trickier on this one because we had previously submitted a site plan application. We could not go into the Viewpoint software and then submit a conditional use permit application or edit the old application. So we had discussed with the city staff how to deal with this situation on Viewpoint. And so we submitted a cover letter that had answered all of the questions of the conditional use permit. And I think our last step is really to get in front of the Conservation Commission for recommendations on our conditional use permit application. And our understanding is that was going to happen next week. But I believe we were not added to the Concom agenda. So I don't have much else to add to that. We would like to be added to the Concom agenda, if possible, and that's for tomorrow night. And then we could at least go and get input from them. I don't know if they would take it up in one night anyways, but we would like to, I guess, keep the process moving for that CUP.
We've had back and forth with email, and I think that needs to be submitted as a standalone application. It was buried in the TAC packet and came in with the TAC packet. It needs to come in as a hard copy conditional use permit application.
But the application's online. We can't edit the application. So we.
But the requirement is it comes in as a hard copy and online. So, and it should be in a separate plan, a conditional use permit plan. You can put an attachment online and show that. It looks like there's more information needed in terms of what you're going to do in terms of impacts and more information about that wetland. I see a line, but I don't see any information about the wetland in the plan I have here. But maybe I'm not looking at the same thing you submitted.
All of that information was submitted in our cover letter, which was how we were told to do it, because we can't edit it. And I guess we'll do it however you want, but previously we'd submitted stuff separately and we were told to put it in one package. And then we were told, so we did that. We put everything in one, 40-page
I think it's one package
document.
for each application. So when you're going to the planning board, it might be that at the planning board, you've got combined site review and conditional use and other things, and then they want that as one package. But when it's going to the Conservation Commission, it's starting its process there. That comes in as an application for the Conservation Commission. It gets put on their agenda. They review it, and they make a recommendation to the planning board. If the site review and the conditional use, you're getting recommendations from both committees and they're going to the planning board at the same time, then yeah, that would need to go as one document so that the planning board gets one packet. That's probably what you were told there.
Yeah, it's a little confusing to us. But I think all the information, we don't have a separate conditional use permit plan set. It's one plan set. And then the only items really are the 3-page cover letter, which outlines all of the information that's requested in the CUP application. So, I think it's all there. If you need us to just separate it into a separate PDF and send just the 3-page cover letter, we can do that. But I thought that would be more confusing than one package.
I can work with you on it. I'll have to look at what you have, but what I'm looking at here, it doesn't have the information that you'd need for a conditional use permit in that level of detail. It just has a line and then the structure, but doesn't have anything about the vegetation or the condition of the wetland or the square foot of impact in the wetland buffer.
Oh, yeah, all that's, all of the impacts, the square footages, all of that's listed, but it's on the different plan sets, whatever sheet it would be appropriate to. It's not on one. The grading and drainage. We have an off-site improvements plan, sheet C4. That shows all the detail, the jellyfish, the treatment device, the riprap, the head walls. We have demo plans. C3 shows a lot of the grading and drainage information as well. We have proposed temporary construction easements on sheet C2 on the city side of the property. So it's all throughout the whole plan set.
Yeah, so I can work with you to get it under one application.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It can't go on this month's meeting, but for next month, we can work with you to get it together so it's the right format, so it can be reviewed. The Conservation Commission isn't used to seeing the whole site review plan and wouldn't know what to do with it, I don't think.
Peter, do you anticipate that they'll want to do a site walk? That's timing-wise.
It's always a good idea. If you want to do it, we can get them out. You got time to do it.
Would
so.
there be a way to schedule a site walk in advance of their meeting?
Sure.
'Cause that would be helpful, I think, if we could get them out there beforehand.
Before the July meeting.
Before the July meeting, yeah. Because that would be, I think then we can go to the July Concom meeting, and then we would still be able to get on the July Planning Board agenda, so we wouldn't really miss anything. If that works.
Yeah, we can try to do that.
Then we can coordinate with you tomorrow or the next day to figure out what we need to submit and how.
Yep. Yeah, I think it'd be helpful for them to see the site.
Sure.
And it is a city property, so you're gonna have to get a city sign off as well, and then you gotta get the council sign off as well.
Yep. So we think that we're sort of past technical issues with this group. If that's the case, then we were hoping that today we could get a favorable vote to move forward to planning board, obviously subject to those other parts.
Are there any other comments from TAG members? All right, we'll allow anyone from the public who would like to speak on this today.
I'm Bill Bowen. I've been here a couple times. I'm with the Condo Association to the west, Sea Star Cove. Two quick things in a positive vein, I think. We've had discussion with Mike and Mick and gone over the property on the landscape plan. I think we've got pretty full agreement on the landscape plan, and it's mostly incorporated into the version that was published within the last couple of weeks. But I think there's a couple little trees more that probably should be, that you've banded. If you could just touch up the landscape plan to include all of those, that'd be great. But otherwise, we're satisfied with the work that's done to provide separation for their people and for our people. The other is an innocent question, just to make sure that it gets done the way that it's planned. It's a very complicated water management system, and this culvert system that goes under the road is critical. And I can't read the documents that get submitted. I don't understand a lot of it. But so the question is, for the city, how is it ensured that this complicated system with a critical element of the culvert to drain the water away, these guys are going to be gone long before this is built. How are we sure that it's going to be? Who in the city makes sure that it's built the way that it's planned? And that's an innocent question. It's just because I don't understand how the game works.
It's a good question. On projects that we have complicated designs, we usually hire a third-party inspector to review the utility network as it gets put in the ground to ensure that it's going to work the way the design engineer intended.
Okay. Is it under DPW leadership, or?
We co-lead it with planning. Planning is the lead because this is a private development. The DPW's role in the city is to take care of public buildings and the city streets.
Okay.
But since we're more or less the experts, we generally lead, but we're not in charge of.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And then the application itself has a long-term maintenance plan that they will be put into the homeowners or the condo association documents, and they'll be responsible for maintaining these systems over the long run. So the first step is making sure they put it in right. The second step is to make sure the maintenance that needs to happen on them happens at the regular intervals.
Right, right. Good. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else from the public?
My name's Michael Simone, owner at 1167 Sagamore Ave. One of my questions on this C4, there's a sub-catchment basin that's going to be projected to put where my mailbox currently is. There's a sidewalk that's going to be connected to the Sea Star Cove. That sub-catchment basin should be closer to that. That's where the runoff comes into my driveway. So I'd like to look at that being revised. Again, like I've said multiple times here, I have video and pictures of where this water flows, and that is where that water is flowing in. So really putting that sub-catchment basin kind of in the middle there of the island really doesn't do anything for me or my property. So I'd like to see that someone take a look at that.
I agree with you. That should be moved. You put it on the other side of his driveway.
We can do that, though. What we had done there was we were shaping a ditch line through there so the water would no longer go into the driveway. But we could move it, either move it up or reshape the ditch line.
You just move the basin up, there won't be any water to deal with.
Sure.
That's my only concern for that aspect. My second is I see the sidewalk construction, who is going to be involved in, there's a, 2% grade going down. I'd like some more information on that, on how the driveway will be impacted and who's going to be taking care of that, if it's the developers or the whoever is constructing the actual sidewalk.
The developer will be building the project.
So they're the ones that will be
We'll have a
contacting.
review engineer
Okay.
there on site to monitor and make sure that it's constructed properly.
Okay,
The 2% grade is required by ADA code.
okay. That's all I have.
Thanks. Any other public comments at this time? If not, we'll close that portion and open up for discussion.
Dave, would you mind restating that last change that you'd like to see be done in response to the testimony of the abutter?
Yeah, there's currently 2 catch basins shown in Sagamore Avenue State right-of-way. Actually 3. The one that's furthest to the north should be relocated on the other side of the second driveway, or the first driveway as you come to it coming down the road, so that it's uphill of the driveway. It'll capture the water before it tries to go down the neighbor's driveway.
So the catch basin located to the north should be located upgrade of the abutter's driveway.
Yep.
It's catch basin 3, if that
Okay.
helps.
Thank you.
So, can I just ask about the location of the jellyfish filter that you picked?
Yes.
I guess I was always envisioning that this was going to be on the downstream end of the culvert. Is there a reason why you picked where you did?
I think because it was the location of where all the pipes come together, so we could pipe in 3 different pipes into it instead of having the,
And that configuration works with that device? You have something from Context that, usually it's an inlet pipe and an outlet pipe on that.
Yeah,
I haven't installed one myself, but having an inlet pipe on 3 different axes coming into the structure is not going to affect the performance?
No, we've been working with Contact directly on it, and they have offline
I just
and
wonder
online.
why that side, because it would be a lot easier for us to work on in the future and clean if it was on the other side of the street, so we could park on the shoulder.
Well, we can do that. We can switch it out to a drain manhole and then put the jellyfish anywhere you want, really, but probably on the edge of the pavement. You don't want it down the slope or off the shoulder, right?
No, it should be in the paved surface, but right on the edge of the shoulder. So I guess I don't have a problem with it as long as, can you provide me some sort of, something from Context saying that it's okay and it's not going to affect the performance?
Yes.
I understand it's one less structure to buy, but I just want to make sure it's going to work properly.
So Dave, would that provide verification from the manufacturer that the jellyfish mechanism can perform at the proposed location?
With 3 different inlets coming from 3 different directions. And are we listing a third-party inspector on this approval list?
I think we need to. On the a stipulation, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we are not already, I'd like to add one.
Third-party approval.
Third-party.
Review?
Sorry.
Not review, inspection.
Oh, inspection of installation
Yep.
of
We
stormwater.
already had review.
Of stormwater
Of
installation?
all stormwater facilities, or what do you?
Stormwater and the sewer and water.
Sidewalk as well.
And the sidewalk, public sidewalk, yep.
And the sidewalk, okay.
Thanks, Zach.
Are there any other outstanding comments from the committee? Okay. Any other comments from the committee? All right, Peter?
No, is there a motion at this time from anyone?
I'll make a motion to move this on to the planning board
Second.
with the stipulations outlined previously.
Can I read them into the record just to make sure?
Sure, go ahead, Steph.
Catch Basin 3 is relocated upgrade to the northern side of the abutters driveway.
Yes.
Can we get a map lot for the abutters, just to be clear? Do you guys have an address or a map lot that I can list?
224, lot 16. 1167 Sagamore Avenue.
Thank you. Applicant will provide confirmation from the jellyfish system manufacturer that the proposed location is adequate to the system's performance.
Agreed?
And third-party inspection of stormwater, sewer, water, and sidewalk installation will be required.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, all in favor of that motion with the stipulations?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
All right, item C under old business, the request of HCA Realty, Inc., owner and Portsmouth Regional Hospital applicant for property located at 0 Boardwalk Avenue, requesting site plan review approval for the construction of a satellite parking lot consisting of 520 spaces and associated site improvements to support the existing hospital facilities currently serviced by 783 parking spaces. Said property is shown on Assessor Map 234, Lot 7-4A, and is located in the Office Research District. Patrick.
Thank you, Peter. For the record, I'm Patrick Crimmins with Ty and Bond. Also here with me from the hospital leadership team is Dean Carucci, CEO, and Matt Larkins, Chief Operating Officer. This is our third meeting with you folks. It looks like, based on the comments that we got back from you, it seems that we've generally addressed all the site-related comments that we had received last month. So I was just going to dive into the new comments, if that was okay with the committee. Great. So the first comment, please contact the Assessor GIS coordinator to obtain preliminary street address. We agree, we're happy to, so we'll reach out. Number 2, please include more details on the multi-use path, extend topography and grading on the plans to show existing conditions and necessary changes to complete the design, as likely there will need to be a road diet, and that approximately half the path on the existing pavement. So we're certainly willing to do this. I'm hopeful that this could be a stipulation of approval from this committee, similar to I've done a number of projects with the multi-use path, just given that survey alone is going to be a time constraint to move forward with this piece. But just like we have on other projects, we're happy to work with the Department of Public Works and finalize the multi-use path design. Clearly, the hospital's committed to it. We've been showing it on the plan since day one. Number 3, waiting for a drainage review from Altus. Agreed. We are waiting for that. Again, given that we have addressed pretty much all the technical aspects of the site with the exception of the stormwater, we'd hoping that this could be a stipulation of approval from this committee to the planning board that the applicant address the peer review comments prior to moving forward to the planning board, just given that we're now here at the 3rd meeting. We're confident that we're going to be able to do this. The site itself is going to actually get a second peer review. It requires an alteration of terrain, so it's going to have a whole another set of eyes on it as well. And then lastly, prior to planning board approval, house shields on the parking lot lights needed to prevent light pollution in the homes of the Colkey Road. Please update the plans. We're happy to do that. We'll revise the photometric plan to reflect that house shields are on those lights. So those were the 4 comments that we had received from you folks. Obviously, with the peer review pending, the hope was that we could get through today without having to come back for another meeting and just be able to work through the peer review process with the peer review engineer and staff.
Any comments from TAC members or questions for the engineer? Seeing none, are there any public comments from anyone in the public?
I had a comment about the landscape plan. I think just want to give you guys credit for doing a great job of enhancing the buffer.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, seeing no public comment, we'll close that portion and open up for discussion.
So the comment regarding the address, I think we're looking to see the addresses updated in the final submittal, if that's possible. I think we'd like to see, that once you reach out and get the interim addresses, we'd like to see those kind of included so that we can have a little paper trail as we move it along.
Happy to.
Steph, do you want to reread the existing comments and make sure that those are all still applicable and there's no modification to those comments?
The ones that Patrick just went through?
Yeah, just to make sure that there's no changes to any of those.
Yep, so, number 1 was the applicant will obtain preliminary street addresses for the property. Number 2, was that they would include more details on the multi-use path and extend topography and grading on plans to show existing conditions and necessary changes to complete the design. The 3rd was, they would address the peer review comments prior to planning board approval, should there be a stipulation of approval. And the 4th was the house side shields on the parking lot lights, would be included in the updated plan set.
Any modifications or additions to that list? Nope. Okay.
I guess my question is, do we need to wait for the drainage review before we can move it to planning board?
I think we should. I personally think that I would vote in favor to move this on, assuming that we can reach consensus with the peer review on the stormwater and the multi-use path before it goes to the planning board. I'm completely comfortable with that, personally.
Could you read that stipulation relating to the third-party review against staff? To make
Yeah,
sure
I'm
that
trying to
that's-
think of how it would,
How does it read right now?
waiting for drainage review from Altus, is what the comment was.
So, please,
Prior to planning board approval.
please resolve any outstanding comments.
The applicant would address outstanding comments from Altus regarding the drainage review. I would want to add who on staff would be working with the applicant.
Well, I think they would work with DPW to.
Work with DPW.
And the-
DPW. Okay.
Is that the same with the multi-use path? Do you
Yes.
satisfy? You're gonna need to do that too, right? So,
Okay.
so both those would get reviewed before going to the
And
planning
approved.
board and approved by DPW, and then go to planning board.
Yep. So as long as the applicant is fine with that, so am I.
We are.
And if you can't reach approval, it comes back?
It just doesn't go to the planning board till it does.
Okay. You're okay with that?
I am. We're in a waiting period with our state approvals as well, so, we have a period of time to work. I'm confident we can work with Dave and the team to move forward with this and be at planning board this summer.
Great.
I'm okay with that. I was gonna state that any changes to the drainage plan, but we tend to be deferential to what is, what is technically required, and so as long as there's no, I think, major changes, I think that just getting that resolved is enough.
So all four of these are prior to planning board approval?
Yes. Is there anything subsequent?
All right, someone willing to make a motion?
So I'll make that motion formally.
Second.
Second?
So Zach,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Last item under old business is the request of North Church of Portsmouth, owner for property located at 355 Spinney Road, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval to subdivide one existing lot with 146,666 square feet of lot area and 10,429.68 feet of frontage into two lots as follows. Proposed lot 1 with 17,817 square feet of lot area and 117.6 feet of frontage, and proposed lot 2 with 128,849 square feet of lot area and 360.62 feet of lot frontage. Said property is located on Assessor Map 169, Lot 1, and lies within the Single Residence B District.
Good afternoon. I'm Doug Woodward. I'm the clerk of North Church, and with me is Liz Good, who is a member of North Church, and I think you may know. We were here last month. We had several items that you wanted to have cleared up, which I understand, two of which we've dealt with successfully, and the other we will, I believe, deal with this afternoon. Two dealt with the property lines around the what we call our parsonage, which is in the northeast corner, adjacent to the parish house. And we had originally had 100 feet of frontage and a perpendicular line coming off the right-of-way. There was a question about the stone wall that has been an old historic lot line that obviously didn't matter for 60 years while we've had the combined use on the site. We did move the proposed property line back to the stone wall as opposed to having an easement over the area. The other one was out in the back of the parsonage lot. There is a sewer and actually a dry well from what had been a footing drain back there, and then the sewer goes off to the northwest across onto the neighbor's land and then down to the manhole on the Route 1 right-of-way. And I think last time we had a line where the sewer was going to be left in an easement, and you asked us to reconsider that. And we do take these back to our governing body of the church to discuss, but we moved the line back, so the sewer for the parsonage is on that property till it goes to the property line with our neighbor to the immediate north, which has been the situation for many, many years. The last item, which I understand you did not get an official report on, but has been dealt with, and I'll pass that along. There was a question about the sewer connection from the parish house, which is the large building at 355, and how, and if that gets down to the manhole on the right-of-way. I think a couple of days after you met in May, I had made an appointment with a gentleman named Doug Sparks at the Sewer Division. We met out on the site. I had with me Paul Kelly, who was the head of our Properties Committee, and Mr. Sparks had another gentleman with him. We walked over to look at the sewer for the parsonage, because the other gentleman thought maybe the two were connected, although there's quite a ravine in between those two buildings, and you can't make that connection. So once they were satisfied with that, and I think I told you last month, we rebuilt the sewer from the parsonage that goes on to the neighbor's land. Mr. Sparks and I went into the parish house and proceeded to flush some dye tablets. He was quite pleased because some of our plumbing fixtures are old and still flush 5 gallons of flush, and it created, because I was concerned that it's pretty dry. There was actually nobody that had been in the building for a few days. So much to his and our delight, the manhole showed lots of dye. The other gentleman was down on the right-of-way checking that out. So you have, I checked with him this morning, and I got a copy to give to you, and I believe he said he gave one to you, Mr. Delphossis. So I think we've proved that we are sufficiently and adequately connected. I can't tell you where it goes under the parking lot because it's hidden from sight, but that seemed to be the last major issue. So I guess we are here to ask you if you refer this on to the planning board with your blessings.
All right, thank you. Any comments from any TAC members at this time? All right, any public comment at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll close that portion and open it up for discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to new business. The request of 230 Commerce Way LLC, owner and applicant for property located at 230 Commerce Way, requesting amended site plan review approval to construct a new 2-story building with a 12,500 square foot footprint and totaling 25,000 square feet with associated site improvements, including lighting, utilities, and stormwater treatment management systems. Said property is located on Assessor Map 216, Lot 1-5, and lies within the Office Research District.
Thank you, Peter. For the record, Patrick Crimmins with Ty and Bond. So we're here today for this proposed project. It's located at 230 Commerce Way. It is a proposed 2-story building in the existing rear parking lot of the 230 Commerce Way office building. It'll be completely within the entire footprint of that parking lot. In fact, we're actually removing 5,000 square feet of pavement from that parking lot that's within the buffer. The use itself will be a veterinary clinic. That does require a special exception, which we've already received from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We've included what we believe to be a very comprehensive package. I won't read all the items into the record, but they are listed on our cover letter. The project is going to require a site plan review permit. That's why we're here with you folks. And it's also going to require a conditional use permit for the work within the buffer, which we'll be meeting with the Conservation Commission on tomorrow. We did meet with you folks previously for a work session. The plan actually is largely very similar to what you folks had previously seen, with the exception of one significant change. There was previously a driveway that had been shown connecting out to Portsmouth Boulevard. Through the feedback of that initial work session process, we have since removed that driveway. So we believe we really kind of simplified the project and addressed many of the concerns that were stated by some of the committee members on the various boards and in the public. The building itself, it's 12,500 square foot footprint, 2 stories, so 25,000 square foot gross area. The parking itself, we are providing just above the minimum parking required, but within the site, with both the existing and new building, we are meeting the minimum parking requirements, and we are not going to the maximum. We've identified, landscaping, buffer enhancement throughout the plan. I think there's over 9,000 square feet of buffer enhancement area, which I'm sure we'll discuss more in detail with the Conservation Commission tomorrow. The stormwater management system, which is the next page. Again, I mentioned the removal of 5,000 square feet of impervious surface, so that alone is an improvement. We'll be reducing peak rates that run off the site just alone with that. So currently the site itself just sheet flows basically down to the adjacent lot, ultimately getting into this wetland. It actually doesn't even enter this wetland on this lot because of the giant berm in the back. But we'll be vastly improving what is out there now, which is nothing, and providing advanced stormwater treatment, which would meet the requirements of the City of Portsmouth site plan regulations. Even though it doesn't require an alteration of terrain permit, it meets the requirements of AOT. For utilities, we have worked with the utility providers. We did include some will serve letters from the gas company and electric company, and the connections for both of those utilities are shown here. We are going to have to run those down the driveway and out to Commerce Way, unfortunately, given that the gas line's stubbed in the road at Commerce Way, so that's the only tie-in we have. And Eversource had asked us to tie in where that transformer is located at the front of the property. For the sewer, there is an existing sewer main, city sewer main that runs through the parcel. We're tying into that. And then for the water, we're proposed to bring the connection down to Portsmouth Boulevard. So on C105, you'll see there the landscaping that we're proposing, which is an enhancement from what exists there today. And again, I note the buffer enhancement, where we'll be adding some native plantings and wetland buffer seed mix. Again, I expect feedback from the Conservation Commission on that tomorrow. So we did include also in the package a trip generation letter describing how much additional trip generation this building would have. I think peak was around 90 vehicle trips during the peak hours, so we're not expecting it to be any sort of impact, particularly given the use of the site and the location. It's an office park. Also, as I went into in detail in this letter, across the street back in 2015, we had done a full traffic study for 75 Portsmouth Boulevard, which contemplated the full build-out of the office park. This dated back to a study that had been done since 1999. But basically, the summary, the square footage of this is captured within that study already, so it's already been looked at. And in fact, that applicant had previously provided contributions for improvement to signal upgrades related to any additional traffic generated from this development. So I think that kind of hits everything. I did get the comments from you folks last night. Thank you very much. Unless people wanted to ask anything up front, I was just going to dive right into those. Cool. Good.
Dive away.
Cool. All right. Study and design restoration of disturbed wetland area and wetland channel west of the property are needed. I guess I just would ask staff to kind of elaborate a little bit on the request. You know, I do know when we did do a site walk with the Conservation Commission, and I do understand that it was looked at and it was noted that there was a lot of trash in there, which is understood. It is the back of Market Basket's building. This site's actually, other than the property line, is actually completely separated from that channel. There's a large berm that totally separates this parking lot from that channel. Yes, we are going to be discharging the new stormwater management. We'll still be maintaining the berm, but because we're going underground to capture it, we do need to find a place to discharge the stormwater. So I guess I just wanted to get further clarification on the request.
The request has more to do with sediment than it has with trash cleanup.
Okay.
We're looking to start a long-term project to dredge that channel. There's feet of sediment in that channel along that way. Some of it got generated from Commerce Way, some of it didn't. But we're looking to kickstart off a fairly significant project.
Okay.
So,
So you're looking at that as part of a larger plan, something that we would contribute to?
yep.
Okay, understood. Okay, so we can certainly look into that. A new sewer manhole should be cut in and not a doghouse manhole. I think that was always our intent, but we will certainly make sure that it's better shown on the plans and clarified so that it is not shown as such. Number 3, prior to planning board approval, the applicant must agree to contribute to the pedestrian multi-use path construction of Market Street. Understood. I think this was a comment that was actually made at work session, so there's no surprise here. We're happy to work with staff to come to an agreement on a fair share contribution towards that off-site improvement. And then lastly, prior to construction, the location of mains on the property are to be field verified by the contractor, as we believe the water main connection already located in the result. As there is a water main connection already located in the area of Portsmouth Boulevard, water mains need to be relocated at the developer's expense or easements required over water mains. So we are in agreement with that, certainly with
Yeah,
the
Patrick, I
water.
don't know if you remember this, but when we did Commerce Way, we never found the water main
Yes, I
coming from
do.
Portsmouth Boulevard. We believe it to be almost exactly where you're showing it.
Yes, I recall.
So you may not need to go all the way out there because you may be able to tap the line in the parking lot.
Okay.
But we certainly need to find that line.
Yep.
And we're endeavored to do that.
Yeah, no, happy to.
You said in your presentation that there was a city sewer line going through the parking lot. That's actually a private sewer line, is it not? It's on the properties of Commerce Way and not city.
Oh, yes, I apologize, yes. So we are tying.
Sewer easement for it, right?
Yes. Sorry, I misspoke.
That's okay. Your plan also calls for a fence along the back access road behind the building, but I actually don't see a fence anywhere on any of the drawings. I see a note for a fence, but no fence.
Along the back. Oh, yeah.
So
that-
if you could turn a layer on, that'd be great. So we could see it?
I guess the intent was to not have a fence. That note was supposed to be eliminated, but is there, because we didn't think it was warranted given the size of the berm that is back there. It's, in some places, it's almost 12 feet high.
I think it's because it's buffer, and we don't want necessarily dogs going back there.
Okay, we can put it, there is a proposed fenced area for dog relief already adjacent to the building. So that was the reason for not putting it back there, plus the berm, but if it's, certainly if it's something that staff really wants, we will show it.
It's Linac Vault, that's something to do with a cancer machine or something?
It is, yep.
Is that for treating animals, obviously?
Yes, it is.
Gotcha. So, this is the same veterinarian that's currently across the street?
That is correct, yep.
Okay. So when they vacate their building, reminding you that even though it doesn't apply today, just because Shanti's here, that there's a water line in place for that building that needs to be connected, and it needs to be disconnected from the building next door when they do major renovations. It was a requirement back 5 or 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yep.
So that's gonna have to happen.
Okay,
There's the building across the street from this,
got it.
where the vet is now, okay? Just so you know.
So that'll be, someone will be made aware of that.
Somebody will pull a building permit for that, and hopefully the building inspector will make them put in their water service. That's what we're hoping.
So noted.
Okay. It's all up to you now. It's off my shoulders.
Yeah.
Dave, did you say you did want that fence, or the note should be
I
removed?
actually didn't. I said it was on the plan, and then it wasn't.
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like, Patrick, there's a couple of dots on there, and the handicap access aisle is probably supposed to be a leader to that for a no parking sign.
Okay.
Looks like the sign legend got put in, but not the leader to it.
Yeah, sure.
Patrick, is there any salt storage in this parking lot?
I'm not aware,
I think currently there is,
but with the addition of the building, I wouldn't,
okay.
they wouldn't be able to operate with a pile of salt there, so I think they'd have to figure out a different location.
Yeah. Okay, well, if it's not here, then they shouldn't have it, but I just wanted to make a comment to have it covered if they do have it, so.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be a stipulation if it's not gonna be there.
Yeah, I think just given the operation of the
Not enough
veterinary,
room,
it's,
yeah.
you know, right now, it's a good use of the site, right? It's a parking lot that's just not used, so
Yeah.
putting building in there, adding tax revenue, so putting stormwater management in.
Yeah, it's an improvement. I think we're ready
All
for
right,
the public.
any other comments from TAC? If not, Pat, go ahead.
If you can just add the same note on mulch as in the last one.
Sure.
Hmm?
All right, any public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll close that portion and open it up for discussion among TAC.
Do you mind reading the outstanding comments that are still?
Sure. So, first one was that the applicant will contribute to the sediment mitigation project, is that right, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. The sewer manhole will be, noted on the plans as a cut-in manhole and not a doghouse manhole. A note about non-combustible mulch will be added to the plan. Applicant, will contribute to the pedestrian multi-use path constructed on Market Street. The location of the existing mains on the property are to be field verified by a contractor as well as, location of existing mains on the property are to be field verified by the contractor. I'm gonna have to wordsmith that as far as putting it as a stipulation.
And reviewed by the Department of Public Works.
Okay.
And approved.
Review and approved by Department.
Okay. Eric, did you have, what was your comment?
Adding a leader to the access aisles for no parking signs at the handicap access aisles.
Did we lose the fence comment?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, adding a leader calling out the no parking signs at the head of the access aisles, the handicap parking access aisles.
contributions for the sedimentation mitigation project and also for, is it for their second contribution? Is there any sort of additional guidance you could put in that, Dave, about what that proportionate to the impact or something that would be a way of qualifying that somehow?
We usually put that as a stipulation prior to planning board approval, so it's, the agreement is worked out prior to going to the.
Fair share.
Fair share.
That's usually the word I think we usually use.
Define fair.
Me and you'll work that out.
Usually, I mean, it's roughly proportional to the impact or roughly proportional or something. Fair share is fine. It's the agreement that you need in place, so, okay. Agreement regarding contribution, just so, because I wasn't clear on that.
Okay, yep. That sounds right? The agreement will be in place prior to planning board approval?
It should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
That means we won't take it forward till that's been decided.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to have
Agreed.
We'll have to have a meeting about that. Figure out how to calculate that fairly.
And that's it.
That's it. I'll make a motion to move this on to the planning board, if that's appropriate.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all, really appreciate it.
2.
All right, I'm gonna attempt to read the next two together. Item B and C under new business. Item B is the request of Port Harbor Land LLC owner and applicant for property located at 2 Russell, requesting lot line revision approval to adjust the boundary lines on 3 lots to create 1 lot with 18,237 square feet of lot area, 1 lot with 52,651 square feet of lot area, and 1 lot with 19,141 square feet of lot area. Said properties are located on Assessor Map 118, Lot 28, Map 124, Lot 12, and Map 125, Lot 21, and lie within the Character District 5, North End Incentive Overlay District, Historic District, and the Downtown Overlay District. And we'll take up item C also at the same time, which is the request of Port Harbor Land LLC, owner and applicant, for property located at 2 Russell Street, requesting site plan approval for the construction of 84 residential units, commercial space, and parking in 3 buildings with associated community space, paving, utilities, landscaping, and other site improvements, including 3 proposed land transfers to allow for the realignment of the Russell Street and Deer Street intersection and for the city's future construction of a roundabout at Russell Street and Market Street. Land transfer area 1 is proposed from map 119 lot 4 to the city of Portsmouth. Land transfer area 2 and 3 are from map 119 lot 1-1C to the city of Portsmouth. Conditional use permit to provide 343 parking spaces on separate lots where 341 spaces are required as permitted under section 10.1112.62 of the zoning ordinance, and conditional use permit approval to allow a 40,000 square foot building footprint within the CD5 as permitted under section 10.5A43.43 of the zoning ordinance. Said properties are located on Assessor Map 118 lot 28, Map 124 lot 12, Map 125 lot 21, Map 119 lot 4, and Map 119 lot 1-1C, and lie within the CD5, North End Incentive Overlay District, Historic District, and the Downtown Overlay District. Who's here to present?
Thanks, Peter. Neil Hansen with Ty and Bonds. Also up here was Patrick Crimmins with Ty and Bonds and Bob Bulig with Halverson Ty and Bonds. Ryan Plummer, the applicant owner, is also in the room. So as Peter just read in, we are going to be seeking site plan review approval, lot line revision, and 2 CUPs for this site. So the site, I think everyone's very familiar with. It's located on the corners of Russell and Deer Street. It is also bound by Maplewood Ave and the railroad. So the proposed site plan shown here on the screen consists of 3 separate buildings. Starting on the left is identified as Building 1, which is a 4-story, 57-foot tall office building. Moving to the middle of the site is Building 2, which is a 5-story, 60-foot tall mixed-use residential building. The ground floor includes a 40,000 square foot footprint, which requires the conditional use permit. It also contains first ground floor parking and retail and commercial space along the street. The building also has underground level of parking, and then the upper floor, 60 units of residential. Moving to the right, Building 3 is another 5-story and 60-foot tall mixed-use residential building containing ground floor commercial retail use and 24 residential units above. Parking on site, or parking for the project is split between the existing Sheridan parcel and the proposed site. Doing that will require the conditional use permit for shared parking on separate lots. The existing Sheridan site has 154 spaces on site. The balance will be provided on the proposed site, split between the first and second floors. Also on the existing Sheridan site, there are a total of 82 deeded parking spaces for the Deer Street and Sheridan condos that were also factored into our parking calculation for the project. And then we'll get into it in a little more detail later, but the project is providing 38.8% total community space. Buildings 1 and 3 will be utilizing the north end incentive for height, which requires 20% community space for those lots. And then the CUP for the building footprint for Building 2 will require 30%. If you go to the next page, please. This is just a more detailed blow-up of the site plan. Again, the parking on site is split between the basement level and the ground floor. The basement has 104 parking spaces, just a combination of single and tandem parking spaces. The tandems will be assigned to a single unit as required by zoning. The ground floor parking contains 85 spaces. 26 of them are single surface spaces, and the remaining 59 will be utilizing puzzle lift systems, and those will primarily be used by the Sheridan Valet across the street. So for off-site improvements on this site, the project is, as proposed, has a 22,000 square foot area of off-site improvements, which includes all of the wide sidewalk areas along Russell and Deer Street, as well as the community park area at the corner, which Bob will touch on shortly. So Deer Street, we are maintaining basically the existing alignment of the street with the addition of that paver crosswalk detail at the end of Port Walk, and that detail mirrors what is currently existing at the opposite end of Port Walk, crossing from the Vaughan Mall. Russell Street, we've looked at the city's complete street guidelines. Russell Street's identified as a slow city core street. So has a 22-foot wide drive with 2 11-foot lanes and parking on both sides. And then again, Bob will get into the streetscape detailing a little bit more.
Thank you.
So if you go to the next sheet, this is.
All right, Bob Eulig, for the record, landscape architect with Halverson Tyne Bond Studio. This site is just, or this image is just to give you a context as to where the site is located, and we acknowledged kind of this open space continuum from the African burial ground up to Deer Street, with the idea that within the massing of the buildings on Deer Street between buildings 1 and 2, there's an open space there that we refer to as the Muse that acknowledges that continuum. Next, please. Then if we look to the site is broken down as Neil mentioned, buildings left to right are buildings 1, 2, and 3, wrapping the site kind of from the intersection of Maplewood and Deer Streets. We have streetscape, which is very complementary and typical of kind of the Portsmouth aesthetic with brick pavers, and then street trees with granite curbed planters around them to maximize tree health in the areas that we're showing blue there. Then, as you approach the Deer Street intersection, there's a community corner park space that we're going to get into a bit more detail on. And then as you go up on Russell Street, again, that streetscape of brick sidewalks and street trees, again, also using the Portsmouth historic light fixture, are continuous in those locations, just kind of, so the two blue areas are kind of that particular aesthetic. And then wanted to point out again, kind of these community spaces between buildings 1 and 2 is the Muse space, which we'll get into in detail. Then the corner community space at the corner of Deer and Russell. And then in the upper right-hand corner, we're improving adjacent to the roundabout, the North Community Park, which is kind of an overgrown and kind of underserved area there. In addition, in the mid-block between buildings 2 and 3 is kind of a shared use area between pedestrians and vehicles, which also serves as kind of the main entrance for vehicles into the parking garage area, and continues over to the area by the railroad tracks. And the area along the railroad tracks is a shared bike, pedestrian, and vehicular use area that extends from Maplewood Avenue up to Green Streets. So we'll be showing a little bit more imagery of that. So next slide, please. This overall is kind of the illustrative plan showing those areas that we've just talked about, and we'll kind of zoom into the areas in more detail now. Next, please. So this is an enlargement of the open space that is a resultant of the change in curb lines responsive to the complete streets, in which we're getting a significant open space at the corner of Deer and Russell Streets. The images on the right-hand side are intended to show you kind of the precedent images that we've picked up on and been kind of inspired by the idea of creating a space that can be open and inviting to the public and responsive to the grade change. There's a fair amount of grade change here from both Deer and Russell Streets to the finished floor elevation of the building. So you step down into that plaza area. The idea is at the corner where there's kind of a black rectangle shown, there's the idea that there'll be an art piece has yet to be determined, but the idea that it's focal, kind of both as you're approaching the site on Russell Street and Deer Streets, that it really is a focal element at that corner. Then inside of that lower plaza area along the edges, I'll refer to that kind of image in the middle on the right-hand side, is this idea that we're hoping to use that grade change as a means of providing seating opportunities on the inside of the plaza and using trees as a way of bookending the plaza area there. So that's a view from above. Then next image, please. So this gives you, we're going to kind of look through a couple aerials. This is from up above on Deer Street, looking into that space. And you can see the planters on either side and the grade change, the steps that come down from the intersection down into the space. The idea also is that when you come across the crosswalks from either side, that there's ample sidewalk area between the curb line and these grade changes, so that people that are not going down into the plaza can traverse both up Russell Street and down Deer Street as well. Next slide, please. This is a view from Deer Street looking down into the plaza. Again, kind of seat height walls where we have the planters for people to sit on. Next image, please. This is from inside the plaza looking back towards Deer Street, the main entrance to the building on the right-hand side. Again, you can kind of see that we're using these elements on either side for public seating. Next. Now we're going to go over to the Muse, which is in between buildings 1 and 2. We tried to be responsive to the idea that this is a continuation of that open space that we talked about, and respectful to it from a visual perspective, that it passes through over towards Vaughn Street and yet provide a place that was an opportunity for people to gather and to utilize the space. So on the left-hand side of the plan image is an open space that would enter out from the building, where you see on the left-hand side there's a triangle that shows a doorway that would come out from the building, so that tenants of that building could occupy the seating on the left-hand side as well as the public. And on either edges, there's opportunities for seating along the perimeters, and we've tried to soften the edges. On the left-hand side, it's viewed to be more office, so the planting on the left-hand side is intended to be lower to maintain visibility. On the right-hand side, the inside use of the buildings along the corridor is going to be more parking. So we're hoping to animate that building edge with the facade materials and then have more of an upright planting as a buffer along that side. So on the images on the right-hand side are intended to kind of convey the intent of what the character of that space would be, and to show you in the upper right-hand corner kind of the idea of benches as both backless and backed seating. So we're going to do a couple of views through three-dimensional images, if you want to take a look at the next slide. So this is the view, again, from Port Walk, looking into that space. Again, you can kind of see higher planting on the right-hand side, lower planting on the left-hand side, clear passageway through, and an accessible route between kind of that shared use paved area in the background and the sidewalk along Deer Street in the foreground. And we're using granite paving as a way of kind of breaking up the space and tying it all together. Next image. This is at ground level from Deer Street, kind of looking into the space. We're also hoping to animate the space so that you see it from a distance with overhead catenary lighting that provides a little bit of a kind of twinkle that is appealing to people and kind of draws them into the space. Next image. And again, this is looking from kind of the entry from Deer Street down to the shared community space beyond. Next. And then just a kind of looks at the palette of materials, again, kind of thinking about the lighting and the paving on the lower left-hand side, the use of the Portsmouth standard kind of lantern fixture, and brick paving is the main palette of materials. And then on the right-hand side is indicated to show you our intent to kind of use raised curbing with broad, generous plantings for soil area for healthy street trees. Next. Then looking at the shared use walk area, that's the shared use way between Green Streets and Maplewood, again, kind of being inspired by what's in front of the Portsmouth Music Hall, the idea that that will be a continuous use of precast concrete pavers there, again, kind of inspired by the image on the right-hand side, using some banding to kind of break it up so that it's not one monolithic look, but has some interesting texture to it. But this idea that it's then open and inviting and for both pedestrians and vehicles throughout the whole length of it. Next. Then at the main entryway, where we have a kind of shared use pedestrian area where vehicles and pedestrians will be sharing the space between off of Russell Street, the intent to have pedestrians kind of, the pedestrian zone dominate, where you kind of cross across that way, as inspired by the image on the lower left-hand side. And then the drop-off area will be similar to the images on the right-hand side, where there'll be some change in paving, and then we'll have bollards to separate the pedestrian-only area from the vehicular area. Next. And then, as mentioned, we're doing improvements to that North Community Park area, where we're kind of cleaning it up and regrading it. The idea is to have it somewhat as an extension of the pathway that's along Market Street, and the extension of and a North Mill Pond Greenway, such that it's a pathway, and then along the edge of that pathway there's opportunities for seating and enhancements with planting, both with buffer planting behind and then kind of ornamental plantings. Again, the images on the right-hand side show kind of the inspirations for the way we're viewing the improvements to that area. Next.
Perfect. Thanks, Bob. So this is the community space exhibit that we prepared and submitted as part of the package. So as I mentioned earlier, for the North End Incentive Overlay District, buildings 1 and 3 require the 20% of community space. And then for the building 2, for the CUP, we were required to provide 30% community space. So this exhibit shows the various community space areas and types that are proposed as part of this project. The yellow area is also the area I mentioned earlier of the off-site wide sidewalk improvements that are not on the property, that have not been counted towards the community space total, but are being constructed as part of this project, which totals an extra 22,000 square feet of area. And that also does not include the realignment of Russell Street, which is also being done as part of this project. So there are 3 types of community space areas shown here. The first being the wide sidewalk, which is in the orange hatching. So that's shown along the faces of buildings 1, 2, and 3. We're also counting the land transfer areas on 2 and 3 as part of that wide sidewalk area, due to the fact that those land transfers are allowing us to realign Russell Street, creating that larger wide sidewalk area on the project side of the street. The second type is the pedestrian alley. So that's counted, we're including that is the Muse area that Bob just described between buildings 1 and 2, as well as the pedestrian connection between buildings 2 and 3, and then the shared pedestrian vehicle access way connecting Maplewood Avenue up to Green Street. The idea being that this will facilitate, pedestrian and bicycle movements throughout the site, and then allow people to cut through the site to get through various other areas in the city, including the future North Mill Pond Trail and Park up in the north end, and then any of the other hotels, businesses, restaurants that are up in the north end to allow passage through the site to those areas. And then the third area is, as Bob just finished describing, is the park community area up by the future roundabout at the intersection of Market and Russell Street. If you go to the next sheet. So grading and drainage. So this site is, in its existing condition, almost entirely impervious, with no stormwater treatment. So as proposed as part of this project, we'll be capturing the runoff from the site via a series of roof drains, yard drains, catch basins. Majority of the site will be then piped into the detention system shown along the back of Building 2, which will then outlet through the Muse, go through a jellyfish filtration unit before discharging down on the Maplewood Ave Deer Street intersection. Full drainage studies and O&M manuals were included as part of the submission. Additionally, this site, this project exceeds 100,000 square feet of disturbance, so we will also require an alteration of terrain permit through NHDES. You go to the next slide, please. So utilities, showing water, gas, and sewer connections for all 3 buildings. We're showing grease trap for each building at this time, although we do not know what the ground floor uses specifically will be, so whether or not those grease traps are needed for the final design of the buildings is yet to be determined. And then Eversource, we have been in contact with them, looking at both on-site and off-site upgrades that would be needed as part of this project. There's 2 transformers shown, or 1 transformer for each building. 2 of them are tucked behind Building 2, which would serve the office, and Building 2, with the 3rd on the opposite corner of Building 2, which would serve Building 3. We're also showing the the off-site improvements, as Eversource will need to discontinue their underground lines that currently go through the site. So also included with the submission, which is not part of this presentation package, we had included a full traffic study. And just to briefly touch on that, the conclusion of that study was that the additional traffic from the proposed project is not expected to have a significant impact to the traffic operations on the surrounding roads. We had also a few other items that I'm not going to go into detail at this time that we had submitted were typical building floor plans and elevations, the grade plan exhibit, and green building statement. And then as for the lighting design, we had also submitted a graphical design package. The lighting is going to be, other than the city standard fixtures, will be mostly building mounted, so that is something that will get vetted through the HDC process. Although we intend them to all be dark sky compliant, cutoff shields, the whole deal. So that is the plan set. At this time, I want to get into the comments that we received yesterday afternoon from city staff, unless there's anything else anyone wants to touch on. Oh, okay. So comment 1, third-party review for stormwater management and third-party review for traffic impacts is required. A full review will be forthcoming after traffic and drainage studies are completed. So we did submit the traffic and drainage studies as part of this, and we understand the third-party review for traffic impacts. We just wanted to raise the question of the need for the third-party review for stormwater management, given that this project needs an alteration of terrain permit, which is a full review of the stormwater. system. 2, are there off-site improvements proposed for the city-owned land located between the railroad and Vaughn Street? And at this time, we are not proposing any improvements to that land area, as it is not property that we control. 3, pre-video inspect sewer and drain pipes on Deer Street, Maplewood Ave, and Russell Street. I think we just were looking for a little additional clarification on this, on the timing of when the city would like this done, pre-planning board, pre-construction.
Pre-construction.
Pre-construction, okay. 4, correct the alignment of the proposed North Mill Pond Greenway. I believe this is in reference to an image in the landscape graphical package, which is I believe the only place that it shows up, and we will make sure we get that cleaned up. 5, drivable area along the railroad must be signed as pedestrian and bike path. Add pedestrian crossing over railroad between map 125, lot 21, and map 118, lot 28. So we have no issue with signing the pedestrian bike path. The owner does not want to take on the liability of having a railroad crossing off of their property. So our design intent would be to put up some sort of wayfinding signage or other barrier at the end of the Muse to discourage people from crossing the railroad at that location and sending them either to the existing crossing at Maplewood or up to Green Street, where there's also a crossing. And then 6 and 7, I'll just take together. The applicant must agree to contribute to the Maplewood Ave drainage improvements. And 7, the applicant must agree to contribute to the Russell and Market Street intersection traffic improvements. And the applicant will work with the city to determine fair share contributions for both of those. And last 2 were both prior to planning board approval. That's all we have at this time. And
All right, thank you. Any comments from TAC members?
I just had a question about the park, on the other side of Russell Street. And it looks like, you have a design for a path to go through there, but there's that big ledge outcrop. Is it you're just gonna knock that whole thing down, or?
Yeah.
No way to work with that and make that sort of a site feature, or is it not worth?
It could, it just doesn't allow much penetration into the site if you keep the ledge the whole way out to the site, so.
Yeah, it's not a very big,
You're right.
it's not very wide if you do.
So, and just to kind of further that thought, Peter, in order to build that roundabout, we have to build a temporary road through there first.
Oh.
So.
You need to take that
We
down.
can't build that roundabout in traffic. It'd be very difficult.
Yep.
So we're gonna want to do that before they build that park.
I have a question.
Makes sense.
So just to make sure I understand, the only lot line that's being adjusted is where you're abandoning a certain area. Looks like it's going to be abandoned to the city. I can't tell, is it to the?
so there's a few different areas. So there are 3 land transfers. One is up at the roundabout to make room for the roundabout. The other 2 are for the realignment of Russell Street on the Sheridan. The other piece is the primary development lot where the 3 buildings are going is currently 3 separate properties. We need to move those internal lot lines so that we don't have lot lines running through the proposed buildings. So that's the other piece of the lot line revision.
Okay.
Is
So-
that shown? Where is
Well,
that shown?
it's hard to find, they're hard to find.
The lot lines show up on the site plan. We will need to have a formal lot line revision plan prepared by a surveyor.
Yeah, I think that and it says like abandoned, but I think, are you conveying some of that to the city?
The 3 land transfer areas would be conveyed to the city, so we'd be moving the right-of-way line. And then
Conveying those portions to the city of each of those 3 sections?
I don't know if it would be a conveyance or just a relocation of the right-of-way. I think that would probably be more question for a surveyor.
Right. So I might adjust my comment based on what I am, and I'll ask legal, but what you're saying is you'll prepare a separate plan for those?
Yes,
3
there will
divisions?
need to be a subdivision.
Yeah,
lot
we
line
just
revision.
didn't take the plan on yet because if anything comes out of here that starts moving buildings, it's kind of a wasted effort to develop that lot line revision plan at this point.
Okay, so I'll probably confer with legal and see what they want that to look like. I understand that we need a lot line revision plan, and then I'll
Yes.
ask them how they want that to be executed, I guess.
Correct. And there will also need to be a formal easement plan as well. There's, I I didn't get into it, but there are existing utility easements through the site that will need to be abandoned. There's an Eversource and Unitil, and we've been in contact with both of them. There's also a sewer easement in the upper left corner of the site that will remain, and then there's also a sewer easement that will need to be abandoned that cuts kind of diagonally across where Building 1 is. And then, of course, all the community spaces will need to be part of an easement plan as well.
So we'll need to see, obviously, we'll have to have an easement plan, but
Right.
then each of the easements on the plan need to have a unique identifier. I think
Yep.
we've said this before, and then correspond with the table. The unique identifiers are explained what the easement's for.
Yep.
To the benefit of whom, from whom to whom. We're looking to get that cleaned up earlier rather than later.
Okay.
So, are any of these easements shown in here right now, or?
The easements to be abandoned are on, if you go back one sheet, I believe, they're on the C-101. We have not, and typically, and we can do this again, we would prepare an easement plan showing what you just described for the TAC process, and then before it gets approved by the planning board, have it formalized by a surveyor with written easements and plans and all the.
So some of those are not on here right now?
Correct.
All right, I just have a few comments, but I'm going to preface them by asking you guys to consider maybe Bob, Ryan, and Dave meeting with me beyond this conversation to talk about some of the landscaping that's in the community space. I definitely am interested in where a bypass road would actually fit around that roundabout and the impact on that little wedge of park area. I'm not sure the curvy linear form and the formality that you're looking at there makes sense for that site unless it's flattened for a road, a bypass road, which looks to me like it would encroach on the railroad real fast, judging by the layout of the proposed roundabout. So details are needed there to figure out, at least in my mind, what's going on in the construction of that roundabout and how it impacts the ledge and the interesting geology of that little piece that, may not need that much attention from a landscape architecture standpoint. It seems like a place people will traverse rather than hang out, but I could be wrong. In terms of the wide pedestrian sidewalk, if you can pull up this is good enough. You guys know where the area is, along the yellow area along the street. I think it's better if we stick with what we do in downtown Portsmouth, which is have, for the most part, street trees in the sidewalk with grates, with civil cells, and wider sidewalks as a result than the granite sticking up everywhere. I understand the benefits to the vegetation, not just being protected, but maybe retaining water easier in that system. But it just seems to me to break the pattern of what we've got downtown and even the pattern along the project as you move along Russell. You get towards that intersection that's realigned. You're then pushed out to the sidewalk without the trees. They flip to the other side in those curvy linear forms that go around the steps going down to the lower level. I think all those steps need to be granite, not brick. Maybe they are, but they're shown in the same color. That's also Portsmouth, that the steps be granite, the sidewalks be brick. I'm not sure the public art at the bottom of the middle of the steps is where you'd want it, but I'm open to understanding why you chose that area. I think if the trees came out to the sidewalks, like they already are to the left, and they're in grates, you'd have an opportunity where you've got the white areas with the trees now and the curvy linear form to do something really interesting to sort of celebrate this space. I don't know what it is, but this whole neighborhood, as everybody in the room knows, was knocked down in urban renewal. And I think it's worth some serious thought about what we could do with that space to celebrate, what we've done with that decision that was made with statuary, or maybe, not necessarily jump on the public art bandwagon, but maybe there's something more educational that could be done there to represent that space with the hill right across the road with what's left of the north end, right in front of you. So I don't know the answer, but I think it's worth before we charge ahead, and we always seem to focus so much on the building and the infrastructure. We miss the landscape architecture piece or the public art educational piece, at least in our review. I think the Muse, that sliver between, at the end of Portwalk Place, I think it's a mistake to put the landscaping against the building. I think this needs to be active urban space, even if the initial use of the buildings is passive. You put the landscaping up against the building, you'll never penetrate that without a lot of effort in the future. I'd rather see the landscaping be in the center and go around it and leave opportunities for either future tenants, a restaurant to go in, spill out. That's a really interesting space. I do think it's challenging because it goes into a dead end at the back with a shared street. But with what they're talking about doing with the mural against the parking, the shared street texture, and I think that's a real success of changing the materials for the cars and the pedestrians. The whole music hall, Chestnut Street approach is excellent. Lighting's gonna be key there. I think people will traverse the back of this set of buildings if it's done successfully, which clearly everybody's trying to do. So I just think we need a little bit more time to maybe get less creative on the landscaping and the curved granite. Seat walls are great. I'm just not sure it's the best way to activate that space. And perhaps the future tenants of the building, if not the initial tenants, going into either side of it. But that, again, that's my 2 cents, and I'm not here. I'd like to continue the conversation even offline, and I apologize. I didn't really review this stuff at this level, some of it even till today. So that's why it wasn't in writing before you got here.
I have another
Any other comments?
I have one quick
Before
question.
we open the public hearing?
Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
Just a couple quick things. The discussion on the easements, they're separate parcels. We need easements for the fire department access road as well. And then also that rear fire department access road needs to be marked in accordance with the city ordinance. That's it.
Are there any off-site easements required to serve the sites, or is it just easements between the parcels or easements to the benefit of the city?
Don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Okay. So we really need an easement plan, but, and so what, I'm asserting that because that will really hold us up at the end. It's better for us to get that squared away
Yeah.
on this side.
Absolutely.
And if there are any off-site easements, it's kind of becoming a standard stipulation. If it's required to serve the sites, we'd like to get some sort of agreement or approval from the off-site easement grantor prior to taking it to the planning board, because then we know we have a plan. So just to make sure that we have that. It doesn't have to be executed. We don't ask for that. We just want to see either the draft agreement and that they've signed it, or at least the letter saying we anticipate providing this easement for the purpose of whatever.
The only one I can think of off the top of my head is tied to the shared parking agreement, which currently exists between these two lots. So that may have to be amended based on the revised site plan, but that's the only one I could think of off the top of my head that involves an off-site entity.
Yeah.
But I think we'll dive into the easement thing and develop a plan, and if we uncover any, we'll get the ball rolling on that.
Okay, I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, without the easement plan and also the, lot line adjustment plan, it's hard to, I feel like those things were pretty important before we could vote on them, you know? But I'm not a voting member, but I just want to express that it would have been nice to have that part of the story kind of sewn up, prior to moving it forward.
Yep, understood.
for quite some time now, the city has been interested in softening that corner at Green Street, and this doesn't propose that. So, we've always been kind of wanting a 50-foot inside radius on that corner back there. And I'm not sure how to do that in harmony with that building that you're proposing, but that's going to be one of our major goals, is to really make Green Street more of a normal-looking city street. And we don't necessarily want that big, hard arc in there, especially when you have other vehicles exiting right behind the building, and the building's going to be substantially tall, so we need to just kind of make sure all that stuff's going to work with sight distances and all the other things. So we're going to need you to look at taking that corner and putting a softer arc corner on it.
Yeah, can you just explain, I'm trying to get a better handle on the entrance, the vehicular entrance to the buildings are going to be, looks like.
Something went wrong. Please try again.
I don't know why it does that.
Anyways, what I was saying was, looking at quickly at the traffic study, it looked like you had the majority of your traffic actually coming in that shared street in the back.
Yeah, so there's separate entrances to both the garage levels. So the ground level garage entrance is off of Russell Street between buildings 2 and 3. The basement level entrance is from that rear access, which is a one-way from Maplewood through to Green Street.
Now, who would be using that back entrance? Is it
It would be
tenants or clients?
Residents.
Residents?
Yeah.
Okay. And then coming in off of Russell Street, would that be residents as well?
It'd be residents and then valet for the Sheridan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so all the parking on site would either be for residents of buildings 2 and 3, the residents of the Deer Street and Sheridan condos, their deeded spaces could get moved across the street, that it'll be an ownership decision where they put them, and then valet usage.
So it really wouldn't be public parking then?
No, there's no public parking.
Okay. So, yeah, and I was just a little bit concerned about that driveway in the back, just making sure that you can get vehicles in and out, the turning movements, check the turning radius, if you could show the turning diagrams on there.
Yep.
The other thing is, that crosswalk, that large crosswalk that connects it up to Port Walk Place on the other side, it's a tough spot because it's so close to the signal, to have pedestrians crossing there. I don't know if it would be enhanced by maybe a median island in the halfway, a pedestrian refuge, or some other. I'm just not wild about having a pedestrian crossing at that location when you're so close to a signalized crossing. It's much safer and easier for people to cross at a signal, but maybe you can convince me that it'll work better, but.
That detail was brought up at a TAC work session, I believe, and I think.
I probably missed that one.
I think the idea, yeah, that's true. And I think part of the idea is people cross there now as it is, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
And I think people, especially if this gets built, people will definitely cross there. So, yeah,
But some of that crossing is because they're using it as a parking lot or they're continuing on up Vaughn Street, but I think that connection over the railroad tracks won't be there in the future, correct?
Right, but the idea is we want to draw people into the site and into the community space.
Big mistake to get rid of that.
So whether or not we look at doing something like you just said in the middle, maybe, or doing something maybe signage wise, or I think we can come up with something to make that as best it can be. But
yeah, especially if you're crossing behind cars stopped at a red light, someone coming up the Deer Street the other way, it's not a great place for pedestrians to be crossing.
That
needs
street is going to be different with that intersection changed.
Oh, you're still going to have,
coming
yes.
up Russell.
You're going to have just as much traffic, if not more than you do now.
More volume's better to slow the traffic than less.
There's going to be less open pavement in the road
You won't have
too.
the 45-mile-an-hour approach coming up Russell with the merge. We want more pedestrian activity.
Yes, and you want safe pedestrian. You want safe pedestrian activity. That's my concern.
Safe
Right.
enough.
Yes.
No tunnels.
Yes.
Safe enough.
Safe-ish.
Bridge over.
Safe-ish.
Do you know the sizes of the domestic and fire services for the buildings? I see they're drawn in, but there are no.
They have not been sized yet.
Okay.
All right, any other comments? Let's open it up for any public comment.
Good afternoon, Elizabeth Bratter, property owner, 159 McDonough Street. Hopefully you got my letter and had time to read it while you were reading the 1,000 pages you had to read for all the other things. Just a quick synopsis. My understanding from this meeting is that there is going to be a secondary drainage, I don't know what it's called, review, and I'm hoping that somebody thinks about the fact that collectively there's a lot of water going into the North Mill Pond, and I understand that there's the sub-catch basements, and they hold the water for a certain amount of time, and then they release it in a certain way, which I don't understand all of that stuff because I'm not an engineer in water. But my concern is when it's high tide and we're having a lot of rain and we have all these catch basins and we have lots of new developments along the North Mill Pond, which seem to be going into the North Mill Pond. So I just was putting it out there. It's not my expertise, just something to think about. Maybe I'm on the wrong boat, but it's okay. In regards to the pedestrian and bicycle thing, I thought you could flip-flop it so that when people come out of the path that's on the back side of the building parallel to the railroad tracks, if you made the pathway come up a little, I put a picture in my letter. I actually did a little cutout for you, for those of you interested, that shows if you flip-flop one of those sidewalks, you could get the pedestrians to hop right on that instead of going down Green Street or whatever they're going to do. People do the path of least resistance, which is kind of why they want to have that safe enough crosswalk there, because that's what they do, and I think that needs to be done at the end of that. I couldn't find trash. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. I've often missed things on plans, but I couldn't find trash for buildings 1 or 2. I did find a lot for 3, but I thought they're not going to be lugging that trash to building 2. So it's buildings 1 and 3. I apologize that I couldn't find trash, but maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. There is a balcony something on the 2nd floor that was originally proposed. I don't know what meeting it was. I've been to all of them, unfortunately. As a living roof green space, but I didn't find it on the landscape plan. I didn't find it on the green building statement, and I didn't find it on the maintenance plan. So I don't know what's going on up there, but there's something going on there that has not been identified or worked with. Maybe I missed that meeting, but I just wanted to put that out there. The traffic report, I find the seasonal 1.23 adjustment to be really low. Maybe I read it wrong, but Portsmouth goes from 20,000 people to, according to the Chamber of Commerce, there's over 1 million people who come to visit the seacoast. So a lot of those people are driving around in Portsmouth, so I think 1.23 is extremely low. The corner of Deer and Maplewood, when I read that report, it was very convoluted, but it seems like it's starting out as an F and it's ending up as an F when we're all done. So just an LOSF, to me, the way I understand that, is very poor. So somebody there, and I understand another review is going to be done at the traffic, but that corner of Deer and Maplewood, I personally think, sorry, Nick, that the sidewalk should be smaller there on that side, as well as where 161 Deer Street is going to be going in, and the lanes should be wider to get that traffic to move through there more evenly. So right now it's 2 lanes on one side of Deer Street, and when you're coming from where the parking garage is on Deer Street, whatever you want to call that corner, at the corner of Maplewood and Deer, it's 2 lanes, and nobody knows how to do that corner unless they live here, and it's always very exciting when you're going to make a left from the side where the Foundry Garage is, and you've got 2 lanes coming toward you, and those people don't know what they're doing, and it backs up there. That whole thing, I know you're going to redo that, but I don't think making it smaller will solve the problem. I think you need to make it bigger so that the lanes are even on both sides, And 161 Deer Street may have to play into that to create that, but I think that's a big problem there. And when I see an LOS of F, and I look that terminology up, that tells me that it's going from bad and staying bad. So those are my key things. I'm sure you guys have your own. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? All right, no one on Zoom. We'll close the public hearing. Up for discussion, we can just vote on these individually or together if they're gonna be postponed.
Well, I just want to address the easement plans. When are you guys planning on doing your easement plans?
We can do them whenever.
They're going to be done before the planning board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon?
I would prefer we continue one meeting so we can take another cut at the landscape plan.
And I think we want to see the easement plans too, right? Before it goes to the planning board.
I mean, I'd like to see that, and then I can get some information to you about how that, dedication, conveyance, transfer, how we typically do that. Maybe Dave knows. I mean, it is kind of like a dedication because you're giving some right-of-way, but it's also like a conveyance because it's existing and it's just a little piece, so I just have to check on that. I don't know if anyone in the room knows how we typically accept that or how the city likes to see that. Maybe it's just an acceptance of, we accept that additional right-of-way, and then later when it's constructed, we dedicate it, and then later when it's constructed, we accept it. Maybe that's how we do it, like we do other right-of-way dedications. But I would like to see.
I think there's a precedent with the AC Hotel.
Okay, so I'll make sure that I understand what to, but I would like to see the full easement plan, and then also the boundary line adjustments kind of segregated onto a plan so we can approve that separately. It's very clear to the assessor. She doesn't have to search for it, and I can, clearly cue that up for the planning board.
Yep.
It'll go quicker. And all that work will, I promise you, help you on the other side. Because we get hung up on the other side sometimes on these very things that end up holding up the plan. So work a little harder now so you can go faster later, I think, if that helps.
Yep.
Are you guys all set with traffic, stormwater, utilities?
We're asking for third-party.
Third-party review.
That's another reason.
So no.
Yeah.
Big no.
All right. Motion to continue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all. We appreciate your feedback today.
Moving on to item D, the request of HCA Health Service of New Hampshire INC owner for property located at 333 Boardwalk Avenue, requesting amended site plan approval for an 8,700 square foot addition to the existing building with associated landscaping, utilities, sidewalk connectivity, and other related site work. Said property is located on Assessor Map 240, Lot 2-1, lies within the Office Research District. I know we have a couple people on Zoom as well. Do you want to start, Patrick, or do you want, Matthew Hamby has his hand up. Actually, I'm going to promote him to panelist. So. All right, take it away.
It's all right, is it me? Okay, can I share my screen? I think I can.
Steph, can you stop sharing? And
Perfect, I appreciate it.
yeah.
Awesome, let me know if y'all can see this.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Matthew Hamby, I'm a civil engineer with Kingdom Ford. I apologize, I could not be there in person, but there is representation from the facility. I believe the COO and CEO, as well as Patrick, is there on behalf of the facility. I believe on the call, we also have the architect, Chris Dumont with Gould Turner Group. So today we're presenting for your review an 8,700 square foot radiation oncology building addition. This will be cancer treatment support space. So it'll be a great resource for the community, expanding healthcare options. This does encroach the building setback as well as wetland buffer encroachment. We have been granted approvals from both the Board of Adjustments for the building setback encroachment, as well as conditional approval from the Conservation Commission for permanent, temporary wetland encroachments, as well as the wetland buffer encroachment. So we have gotten approvals from both of those boards, with a slight condition from the Conservation Commission, which we'll talk about further. So plan south is Borthwick Avenue. The building would be extended and the patient discharge entry drop-off reworked with a new canopy and new accessible parking spaces to service that entry location. This is the overall, so you can give yourself context on where we are on the campus. I'll scroll down, and we're going to flip 180 degrees here, as it's easier on the eyes for plan sheet clarity. But as stated, we're just going to rework this drive, as well as add the new ADA parking spaces. There will be a mobile MRI pad, which is quite literally what it sounds like. It's a mobile MRI unit that can be used by the facility to provide MRI services to patients, especially during construction and once they're doing the renovation, so that they do not have a lapse in service to the community. Can I continue to go down? Here we have a grading and drainage plan. So as you can tell, we are encroaching into the wetlands as previously stated. Thus, to offset the wetland encroachment, or the reduction in wetland, we are expanding the wetlands and regrading a portion of the site to pick up an actual net total add of wetlands to this property, as well as additional stormwater volume to attain and detain the additional stormwater caused by the building expansion. There will be minimal storm pipe added for roof leaders connections to drain the roof for the building. Continuing on, we have a utility plan. There was a couple of comments regarding this that we got from the TAC, so again, we'll discuss them shortly. But we will have a new manhole to be added on this active sanitary sewer line that drains a majority of the facility, as well as reworking the existing fire service line that comes from the public right-of-way to the existing riser room to the hospital. Obviously, with this building expansion, we're going to have to hot tap that line and reroute it around the new building foundation and bring it back into the same room as it is today. Additionally, for the mobile MRI pad, there will be a small retaining wall. We will also have to reroute part of the dry FDC, the fire department connection line. The FDC actually sits about right here. It was installed about a year ago with this building expansion, also radiation oncology. So we will have to reroute a small portion of that. Again, that's 4-inch drop standpipe to that FDC. That's the premise of the construction documents. We have the full TAC submittal package here that also includes the drawings and some architectural elevations for reference. So this is generally, obviously, it's not fully colored, but this is the general building addition, is this red facade. And then we have some supporting exhibits showing the wetland encroachments, both temporary and permanent. There will be some additional temporary encroachments as they build this building, but we do intend to fully restore the wetlands. We have a landscape plan that shows new native plantings that will provide berries and food for wildlife, namely mallards that the Conservation Commission was talking about, as well as some trees, replacement trees, because we'll be removing several trees on the south side of the facility for this expansion. So we do plan to replace all of those trees with the same number. So supporting documentation again, showing the wetland encroachment. This is the stage storage for the pond and the routing of the stage storage from the runoff from the impervious area from the site. We did run a hydroflow model showing the peak discharge is actually reduced with the pond expansion. There was a TAP comment, again, we'll talk about shortly, in asking a question about this report, and we will address that. And lastly, there was a long-term maintenance plan. Again, this was requested by the Conservation Commission and was added to the package after that initial submittal and meeting. That is all I have from a high-level presentation. Are there any questions?
When you did the stage storage analysis, what storms did you use?
We modeled the 10 through 100 years storm events.
But not the 2-year storm?
2 through 10, yes, sir.
Okay. And what were the results for the 2-year storm?
9.1 in the pre-development condition, 8.8 in the post-condition.
Okay.
There's no questions. I can jump into the CAP comments that we received yesterday afternoon, if that works.
Sure.
Okay, great. Number 1, address grading a handicap ramp at main entrance to stop drainage issue on a handicap ramp. I'm assuming I need a little bit more context there, but my assumption is that that's at the existing main entry in the existing handicap spaces.
That is at the main entrance. The landscapers have blocked the drainage for the handicap ramp. During rain events, there's 6 or 7 inches of water in the handicap ramp. So we want the landscaping company to remove all the plants and mulch that they installed.
You want me to go? So I'll take that one, Matt. It's not the landscaping, Dave. What it was is the retention pond that's just page north or whatever we are here was backing up the entire system. So last year they reconstructed that retention pond. There's no longer any flooding that's occurring in that parking lot.
Okay. But the comment is specific to the handicap ramp for the city sidewalk that's being flooded.
The city sidewalk. Sorry,
City
I
sidewalk.
thought you were talking about that sidewalk
No,
right there.
it's on Borthwick. It's the city sidewalk right at the main entrance. And
Oh, down here.
yeah, there are
Okay.
ducks there.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was assuming it said main entry, so I was quite literally thinking the main entry. So there is concern with one of these 2 ramps holding water.
It's on the main road.
Main road.
Further down.
Further down.
City Street.
Go to Borthwick.
Pan right.
Okay, so we can look into repaving this crosswalk perhaps, and that would hopefully alleviate that concern.
A couple of shovels would alleviate it.
Oh.
Yep. We just want somebody to do it, please.
We got it.
Thank you.
Okay, easy, thank you, yes, sir. Number 2, locations of the water lines are not accurate, please correct on plans. A little context, is that talking about the water line relocation for the fire main that was coming in the building?
It's the 4-inch water line that you're showing going up the emergency entrance driveway?
Yes, this guy right here.
Yeah, we have no record of that line.
So right now, that's a dry FDC fire department connection line. So I believe whenever we permitted this project 2 or 3 years ago, there was a comment that we needed an FDC closer to this hydrant, and so we added this dry fire department connection and routed it like this. So now we're putting this mobile in our iPad, so we're just going to pick that up and route it back around back into the building. like such.
You know about that?
Well, I was part of the conversation of where the FDC went
Yeah?
with the last project. It's going to stay there, correct?
Yeah, they're gonna reroute it.
Rerouting the,
Okay, so that's not an actual water line, that's something else. So you
That's
should just,
fine.
you should just relabel it on the plan, so, it looked like a water line, but it's really not, it's some sort of fire department connection.
Yeah, we.
So if you could relabel it FDC so that it's clear that it's not a fire, not a feed,
Okay.
yeah, it's
which
actually.
is very
it's an
confusing, because we
emergency
didn't know
feed
anything about that
for
pipe.
the sprinkler system that we would pump.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, we can do
I
that.
know what it is, I just, nobody told us, so, we didn't know it was there.
New sewer manhole may not be a doghouse manhole, clarified detail on C6. Again, this is an active sewer line. I mean, I know the contractor and the facility would probably prefer we can cut in a doghouse there or use a doghouse. That way they don't have to bypass pump, try to install this manhole. But if you guys are not agreeable to that, we can certainly do a precast cut manhole. It requires the contractor to back it up and pump around.
Yeah, we understand that. Considering the groundwater in that area, there's no way we're gonna allow that.
Okay, understood. We will revise it. Confirm the drainage study uses the Cornell stream precipitation values. We did use the NOAA standard rainfall data. However, we did go back and pull the comparisons. This is the Cornell extreme precipitation values. NOAA actually meets and exceeds all rain events except for the 100-year 24-hour storm, which Cornell extreme precipitation estimate is 8.8. The NOAA value is 8.53, so that's about a 3/10 inch difference, which we can revise that storm data and rerun the model. We don't anticipate much of a change due to the conservative nature of our model, but we can certainly make that modification.
I agree, it's not gonna be much of a difference.
Correct, should not be much of a difference. And then these last two, reestablish a drainage well from the propane tank behind the hospital to Borthwick Avenue near the emergency room driveway. So I don't, and Matthew, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know of a propane tank out here. I'm assuming there may be referencing the fuel storage tank for the generator.
It's the oxygen tanks, Matthew.
Oh, the oxygen tanks, okay.
Propane,
Med-gas,
oxygen,
okay.
same thing. Right.
We knew what you meant.
Oh, there's on the med gas, okay. So, yeah.
Read this. This is why I'm not talking.
So, I think Patrick explained a minute ago that this pond was reconstructed and alleviated some of the previous parking lot concerns. Does that impact you guys' I guess, stance on that comment? Or
No.
Really, these comments are kind of the same.
No, this is a long-standing issue that's been going on since they built the original building. So, I'm not sure whether the channel that was left when they filled the site was big enough or what the issue is, but there's feet of sediment in the channel that needs to be removed in order for the greater wetland area to function properly. So the area from Borthwick Ave, all the way around the emergency area, behind the helipad seems to be the worst spot. All needs to be dredged as part of a long-term repair to the system, which is completely choked with sediment.
I'd recommend they characterize it or try to design it as a restoration plan. But I don't know how that permitting is gonna go.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question is.
No, we understand it's gonna be a significant permitting issue, and it might be on a separate timeline.
Okay.
But it's definitely gonna be part of the approval.
So a stipulation that.
Yep.
The channel.
And we're not gonna hold up the addition necessarily, but We want our channel open to drainage. We want it fixed. As a point, you can see on the plans that the culverts crossing Borthwick Avenue are listed. And what's not listed is the culvert that's 3 feet underneath that, underwater, where the water used to be. So there's literally 3 feet of sediment in that wetland that needs to be removed in order for the water to flow the way that it once did.
Where's that coming from?
It comes from Sherburne Station, it comes from the other property behind on the Eileen Dondero Drive. It comes from all over the place. It's a huge watershed that once flowed through that area, and that's a lot of that hospital area is fill. So it doesn't have the cross-sectional area that it once did to flow through. So with all the development that's happened on Borthwick Avenue over the years, the area has choked with sediment, and it needs to be dredged.
I do believe that the property line, I mean, that's, I would assume, going to be a shared maintenance item. I mean, the property line does basically run in the middle of that wetland area, and then presumably the adjacent property also discharges to that area. So if we could not tie that to letting this project proceed to the planning board, I know from a...
No, we're gonna let it proceed, but it's gonna be a comment.
Okay.
Yep. And the area in the back does contribute, but it contributes behind the Healy pad.
Yes, sir. Study and design is needed for the restoration of disturbed wetland area and wetland channel from the propane tank area to the east of Route 1 to ensure proper drainage flow.
That's the same thing, Dave.
So kind of the same.
It's further downstream. It's not the area immediately adjacent to the hospital. So we're tasking you to dredge the area immediately adjacent to the hospital and then contribute to the design of the dredging for the rest of the system, which goes beyond the property that you inhabit.
So similar to the comment you just gave me on my other project.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's, all these areas just need a lot of dredging.
Okay.
Those was only TAC comments that we received yesterday to discuss.
Patrick, was there a trip generation provided? It probably isn't much, but if you could provide that for the addition?
Yeah, we could ask Kimley Horn to throw something in.
No, we have not run a trip generation. Hey, Chris, I don't know if Chris Dumont is on, the architect.
Yes, he's on.
This does not propose new beds, correct? This is clearly support space.
That's correct. There is no beds under this project.
Yeah. So from a trip generation standpoint for hospitals, typically that's a function of the number of beds. And being that this is not, rapidly adding capacity bed-wise, this is just a support service for the hospital to treat current patients that are already there. Cars are already there, presumably.
Yeah, like a medical
So there
office.
should not be any additional traffic.
Well, I'm sure there'll be some additional traffic, and I'd like to see it documented. Medical offices generate traffic.
Yeah, we can put that together.
Yeah, we can put
It's
it
minimal,
in
but.
I'm sure it's minimal,
Put
but
it together.
just
Yes,
document it.
Yeah, you got it.
It's good to have an answer to that. The planning board will definitely ask that question.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have more traffic experts on the planning board as well.
Yeah.
The impact will be nothing, so it's just
Yep.
documentation, understood.
Exactly.
All right, thanks. Any other comments from TAC members?
Pat has one.
I just have a comment on the egress. Looks like you have an exit passageway from stair 1A. That's part of the new construction. So does neither stair from the second level discharge directly outside rather than going through the exit passageway? Is that the...
Chris, are you on to comment on stairwell A exiting into that corridor versus outside?
Which, are we talking about the one that's for the front door?
Yes.
The plan, the way we have designed this, we understand this is an internal stair. We have extended that stair egress to the entrance doors all the way to the exit sliders that are there today.
Yeah, so I would just
So the
cautious.
2-hour rating will run from the internal stairs to plan east and then down the corridor, plan south, out the vestibule.
Yes.
And what we'll have is a 2-hour wall to the deck and a 2-hour ceiling across it.
So I'm not a fan of that approach. It's not necessarily not allowed because it's an exit passageway. Given the occupancy there.
The problem we ended up having with this is that the way the code is written, we're only allowed to have 50% of the stairs to go through a lobby, and due to where this stair goes, the stair goes up to, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, like the 5th floor, right? Like this is one of the highest stairs.
That's correct.
So we could not have the stair egress through a lobby per se.
Yeah, no,
So
I
what we-
understand.
so
So
what
you
we had
created
to
an
do is
exit passageway, which is perfectly allowable, just probably not the best idea in this occupancy. But what, I guess one concern is, when you do that, you can have nothing in that exit passageway that doesn't serve it, including things going through it, such as electrical or plumbing, gas, or anything. There can be no benches, no seating, no planters, no anything within that exit passageway.
Yeah, agreed. And the way that we're designing this is that we're creating a 2-hour, I'm gonna call it a tunnel, which is the walls go up to the deck, and then we have a 2-hour ceiling, which then allows us to keep the utilities above that tunnel and keep a passageway for egress for the patients and staff.
All right. I just see a nightmare as far as keeping things out of there, given the width, and given that it's an entrance going into, a main waiting area, keeping items out of there, furniture out of there, and decorations out of there. And given the occupancy, being kind of a high risk in a large building, that is going to be very challenging for us if we have to evacuate part of that building. It's going to be difficult. So if there was a way to have a stair go, I don't know that you can. It's a 5-story stair. I mean, you can't move it. Yeah, that's my concern. It's not code compliant.
Understood. We only made the width of the stair, the width of that corridor 8 feet, which is required by code. So the intent was not to make that space any bigger than what's needed. And we recessed the doors so those doors would not swing into we recessed the doors that go into suites so they would not reduce the width of those corridors, those egress corridors.
Okay.
We are following the code by T. If you need it, if you want us to quote if you want us to do a code little research for you, I would.
No, I understand the exit passageway codes and that it complies. It's just, sometimes it's not a good idea, even if it does comply to some.
Okay, understood.
We'll deal with it.
Any other comments? Is there, I don't see anyone from the public from here. Anyone on Zoom? All right, we'll close that portion and have discussion amongst TAC members.
Steph, do you want to read any outstanding comments that are still there? Let's see if we.
Sure.
Where we are?
So I had the contribution to sediment mitigation and wetland restoration plan. I had the trip generation memo will be provided to DPW for review and approval. Regrading will be done to the area where the Borthwick Ave handicap access or handicap ramp access is located to fix flooding issue. Sound good?
We'll shovel that this week.
Shovels.
Shovels.
We'll shovel that this
They need
week.
shovels.
Okay.
Yeah, we can use silver shovels later. We'll take the photo there.
Okay.
Yes.
Provide photographic documentation. The area was shoveled.
We'll be out there tonight, don't worry. Landscaper was hung and quartered, yes.
I did have a question about the drainage swale by the oxygen tanks. Was there any action that needed there?
Yeah, needs to be done.
Okay,
Yeah.
so reestablish drainage swale.
Reestablish drainage from
And then
from
DP.
Borthwick culverts,
Okay,
lower culverts, to the oxygen tank area.
Reestablish drainage swale and lower culvert, is it?
That's part of a,
From the
From-
culverts.
it's part of a restoration effort.
Understood, okay.
You mean the lower culvert, the one that's 3 feet below the?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, yes, the big one, not the little ones on top.
okay, drainage swale to be reestablished from lower culverts to oxygen tanks.
To be, yeah, restored, reestablished, I guess. That's right.
Okay. Fire department connection line will be labeled. Sewer manhole will be a cut-in manhole.
Yes.
Okay. Did I miss anything? Do any of those need further review by TAC?
The drainage plan, or both of them will be, yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying it's not ready, you want to see those before?
No, 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 I think they can move forward, but they're on a separate track. They need to be tied to this project, but not necessarily.
So all of those are precedent to?
Planning board approval. Okay. How should we tie that project to this project?
Through the bond for the project.
Okay.
Has to be completed before the project's complete.
Is there any language that needs to go into stipulations for the planning board?
Well, so when are you gonna review that? Is it okay if it's after the planning board?
Oh, yeah, they're gonna have to do a whole
So it's
mitigation.
it's a condition
So it's a
subsequent.
No, do you want it done prior to the building permit? When do you want
No,
it?
it'll be tied to the bond, for
Oh,
bond
it's tied
release.
to the bond, so could you restate it for us so that we have it correct in the?
Yeah, it'll be, the dredging project needs to be completed as part of this project, and the bond will not be released until the dredging project is completed.
Understood, got it.
But it's not specifically tied to the building, so that you guys can move forward. Okay?
Second.
Did somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion to move this on. Oh,
There's a motion and a second? I couldn't hear it.
oh, yeah.
Fine.
We keep forgetting you.
There's a-
Keep forgetting you're there.
There's a second, and then there's a motion, so.
Miss you.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all.
Motion to adjourn.
Looks like that's it.
That's it.
That's enough.
Thank you, guys.
Hung it up in there, okay?
Thank you.
Dave, when's the last time somebody referred to you as sir?
No, it happened one other time. It did. back in like 2008.
What? My what?
There was somebody else, they thought I was somebody else.
We have a meeting
I get
tomorrow
called
morning.
sir a lot. They just usually
You
follow
do?
with you're
Yes.
causing a scene.
Yes.
Or we need you to leave.
Chad and Sean are gone, but it's okay. I think there's a lot of stuff going on